Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our December Council meeting. Firstly, Council acknowledges the Wadawurrung people as the traditional owners of the land, waterways and skies, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present. We acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people also who are part of our Greater Geelong community today. Now, this meeting is being broadcast on the internet and the recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our final Council meeting for 2021. We're very pleased to have some members of the community here with us in the Council chamber. Welcome to you all. We look forward to hearing your questions and submissions shortly. Hello also to everybody watching home via the live stream. We're very glad you could join us. Sorry about the feedback. There's obviously some tech challenges that we usually solve every meeting. You will notice we do have our hybrid meeting format up and running for the second time tonight. That has actually produced a few challenges with microphones and projectors, so please bear with us. The team is working on resolving this and should have it all settled into the new year. We have 10 councillors in the chamber with us, and we have Councillor Maloney joining us via video link. And before we begin, I will take this opportunity on behalf of the Council to wish everybody in the community a very, very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. We hope you enjoy the festive season, and if you haven't taken in some of Council's Christmas activities, such as the floating tree or the City Hall projections, I recommend them as a great way to get into the spirit over the next few weeks. We wish you and your families a very happy and healthy 2022. That's not ideal. While we try and address that noise, I'll speak up a little bit just so to make sure everybody can still hear me. Did have the distinct pleasure today, you might see a couple of awards sitting next to me here, of attending the Keep Victoria Beautiful award ceremony to accept the winning trophy on the right here, on your right, my left. City of Greater Geelong was very proud to be given the Sustainable City of the Year 2021 award. And there was apparently extremely stiff competition. It's a statewide event, and on the basis of more than 10 other awards that the City of Greater Geelong won in a sustainability context, we were considered to be the most sustainable city in Victoria. So it's a huge accolade and a real testament to all the work that's gone on with our officers under our sustainability framework and sustainability action plan and the environment strategy, and I commend all the officers who have worked incredibly hard, come up with some really innovative solutions, and also our CEO Martin Cutter and our executive leadership team for supporting this. So congratulations to everybody, and it's a really good way to start this meeting, having such a great award. So we will start. I will be asking for strict adherence to speaking time limits tonight, as usual. Do we have any apologies? I don't think we do. Are there any requests for leaves of absence from councillors tonight? One thing that I have noticed is because we can remote into meetings that people don't necessarily need to take leave as they used to, so we basically never stop working. So do we have any declarations of conflict of interest in relation to tonight's agenda? Councillor Harwood, then Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Harwood.
It's in the confidential section, so I'll wait till then.
You'll make that time. Thank you. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 2.3, the Amendment C339, I have property in that particular zone, and also in the confidential report 6.4, I'm an office bearer of a club that had submitted a grant.
You, Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, I have conflict with item 2.8. The group of companies of which I am a director has a potential business relationship with Hanwha Corp.
Thank you. If there are any other conflicts that arise during the meeting, please just let me know. I need a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 23rd of November 2021. Moved Deputy Mayor Sullivan, seconded Councillor Mason. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, the next agenda item is public question and submission time, and it's specifically available for questions and submissions rather than as a forum for discussion. And in accordance with our policy, we set aside 45 minutes for question time, providing for each person to address the council for around 3 minutes. And we do endeavour to keep our responses to the same time frame. And that's just in the interest of everybody getting a go if they so need. Questions and submissions provided in writing prior to the meeting will be considered first if the submitter is in attendance, and after this, if time permits, everyone in the gallery will be given an opportunity to ask a question or make a submission. Please note that if it's in relation to an agenda item, councillors won't be able to provide you with an answer, but you will be able to hear us consider the item shortly. For those community members present who have pre-submitted questions to council, you will have the opportunity to ask your question and have that answered tonight. For those not present tonight, the responses to pre-submitted questions have been published on the council's website and will also be emailed to you. It's also important to note that each councillor has read the questions that have been sent in. And for tonight's meeting, we've received the following pre-submitted questions from 3 community members. Firstly, we have Dennis Hayes from the Corio Cricket Club, home ground conditions. Secondly, Neville Whitley, gambling harm minimisation from the council policy. And third, Daniel Garcia, COVID-19 full vaccination mandate. May I have a show of hands of those in the gallery whose names I've just read out? 2. Lovely. I think there's only 2. Okay, well, from the top, is Dennis Hayes one of those hands? I'm hoping so. No? Neville Whitley. Welcome, Neville. Please come forward.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Just I'd like to thank the council for hearing me. It's probably in its infancy yet at this stage because of the harm minimisation policy that's going around, and I request that all councillors see a submission that's been put in by CCV, that's Community Clubs of Victoria. It answers a lot of the questions that would normally be answered here, but there's so many that need to be answered and clarified. I've only got 2 or 3 as stipulated. So I do invite the councillors to look at that CCV submission if it hasn't already come. I think it was in by Friday, before the extension of 17th of January was given, and I thank the council for extending that time frame because it allows our community clubs to be able to submit and let you know what the benefits are of non-profit organisations such as our football and netball clubs. One of my first questions is, I'll put my glasses on, it helps. Why is the council getting involved in only one aspect of gambling, and that's electronic gaming machines? Do you want to go through each of them? Or?
Yes, ask all of them and then we'll have them addressed as one.
And why is harm minimisation policy aimed at clubs when they are all non-for-profit? And why is the policy heading towards discrimination? The policy unfortunately suffers as a result of not being informed by a background report or any strategic context. Why? They're my 4 questions.
Great, thank you, Neville. And also, yes, we did listen and extend the consultation period because we did have quite a bit of feedback. So I will throw this to our Director for Community Life, Robin Stevens, to respond. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Mr Whiteley, for your questions. So the City's previous electronic gaming policy from 2017 was due for review in May 2020. The scope of the new draft gambling harm minimisation policy has been expanded to include all forms of gambling and focuses on the well-being of the whole community by adopting a harm minimisation framework. Councils are legislated by the state government to plan and report on community health and wellbeing, and the draft policy aligns the strategic direction of creating a healthy, caring and inclusive community as outlined in our Community Plan 21 to 25 by balancing the right to entertainment with the overarching need to promote community health and wellbeing. Council has an ongoing commitment to working with our local sporting clubs, and this is emphasised through the draft policy. Council has existing links with sporting clubs through the provision of grounds, infrastructure and officer support, leasing, rates and licensing agreements, as well as access to community grants. Our aim is to continue to see local clubs flourish, which is why the draft policy emphasises supporting and working alongside any club, group or organisation which wishes to divest itself of EGMs. Current research, a benchmarking process, local data and consultation with councillors and across the organisation has informed the development of the draft policy. And As has been highlighted, the engagement period has been extended until the 17th of January, so all of that feedback will be considered before a report returning to Council in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Neville, for your questions.
Thank you very much.
Terrific. We look forward to reading more submissions. The next submitter, Daniel Garcia, I believe is in the audience. If you could come through, please, Daniel. Welcome.
Good evening, councillors and candidate Asher. My name is Dr. Daniel Garcia. I have two questions.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. It's actually in our rules that all councillors and mayor must be referred to as their proper titles when being addressed by members of the public and councillors within the chamber.
Oh, sorry, I was confused. Are you candidate or Mayor Asher in this setting?
Mayor Asher, thank you, Daniel.
Sorry,
I'd like to continue, I don't need to listen to your question if you're just going to use it as an opportunity to criticise me. So you can ask your question.
I'm just clarifying your position. Is it Mayor at the moment or is it candidate?
As I said, Mayor Asher is how you can refer to me, otherwise you can take your seat.
I just need to clarify that.
Thank you. Your question, please.
Sorry.
Your question, please.
My question. So you're Mayor Asher at the moment?
No, the question that you were going to ask.
Yeah, I just want to clarify for the record.
Yes, absolutely, Mayor Asher.
And it's great to know that. My questions are, all councillors double or triple vaccinated at the time being? And secondly, what are the councillors' positions explicitly of each councillor here on mandating appropriate health and safety policies around COVID-19 vaccinations for all clinically appropriate council workers?
Thank you for your question. It's actually an operational question. So
actually, I'm asking for the opinion of each of the councillors.
Excuse me, can you stop talking over me, or else I'll ask you to sit down. It is an operational question, and Martin Cutter, the CEO, will answer it, and then if each councillor would like to answer individually, they may do so. Martin, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your question, Daniel. Reducing risk to our customers, community employees and meeting our legal, occupational, health and safety obligations is central to how we operate. Under the current state government directions, people over aged 12 years and 2 months must be vaccinated against COVID-19 to attend a range of events and activities in the community or show evidence of a valid medical exemption. Following extensive risk assessment, the City of Greater Geelong has determined that visitors, including councillors, aged over 12 years and 2 months are required to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 or hold a valid medical exemption to access facilities staffed by City employees. The requirement will help provide a safer workplace, reduce the risk for anyone working or attending one of our facilities, and maintain our level of service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Now, if anybody would like to answer the question, I'm more than happy to say I'm double vaccinated. I think all of us here have put ourselves on a poster saying exactly that. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and I think that's what I was going to say. There was a big billboard on the side of the Lara Library that didn't get graffitied, which is a great thing, that had the reason I chose to be vaccinated was to make sure we could see each other again soon. So I'm pleased to say that, yes, double, not triple just yet. Thank you, Madam.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Would anybody else like to answer Mr Garcia's questions? Thank you.
A point of order.
Aitken.
Dr Garcia Asher. Mayor Asher.
Thank you. I just have Daniel Garcia here, so I just called you Mr.
I introduced
Councillor
myself as I came
Aitken.
We've just recently received correspondence from the Minister for Local Government that's actually encouraging all councils to consider what has been adopted by the Parliament of Victoria, which is that all politicians actually should be double vaccinated. So at some stage we're going to have to respond to that letter because it only has been received, I understand, in the last 24 hours. And as a consequence, it will have implications for the council group if there are any of us that aren't meeting that directive. So we will have to understand and have a discussion about that as a council group. Yeah.
It sounds like a good conversation to kick off 2022. Would anybody else like to answer the question? Deputy Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Absolutely, as was published, just as Councillor Grisbeck and just about everybody around this table, with the combined campaign between the City of Greater Geelong and Barwon Health, I'm certainly proud to be double vaxxed.
Councillor Murrahy.
Yeah, I don't mind saying, Dr. Garcia, that I'm double vaccinated.
Councillor Mansfield.
I'm happy to also disclose that I'm actually boosted, triple vaxxed, but I work in healthcare, so that's one of the requirements for my employment.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I'm very pleased to advise that I'm double vaxxed and looking forward to my 5-month third vax booster shortly. And as far as mandating is concerned, it's I see it on a spectrum. I think it is extremely important for the common good, for the public health, for the public good. In the long term, once we reach 90, 95, whatever it is, I hope that we can look more carefully at those who don't wish to be forced.
Councillor Mason. Anyone else? Okay. Councillor Nelson.
Yeah,
yes.
I work in the disability industry, so I'm double vaxxed. Has been double vaxxed for quite some time, so I guess I need my third jab by now.
Thank you.
To clarify, I'm double vaxxed too, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Aitken, did you want to say something else?
There's no confusion. I'm actually double vaxxed as well too, just to make sure if
Forgot to
anyone's
answer
worried
the
about
question.
that. And I've booked in for, I think it's February the 23rd for my booster shot. So I'd like to think that we're meeting Dr. Daniel's wishes. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Harwood.
The good doctor can leave with a clear head. I'm double vaxxed.
Great, thank you. You can assume that everybody in here is double vaxxed in the chamber. Thank you, Dr. Garcia, for your questions. Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor, just for the last second,
some...
just so I can get the full gamut yourself.
Yeah, I said...
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Absolutely, I'm double vaxxed. There's a big poster of it.
And
yes.
Candidate Maloney, Councillor Maloney, who she's the only one missing. Does she have anything?
She can answer for herself if she wishes. If she doesn't choose to answer,
fine. I'm just wondering if she's just not able to hear us because she's online.
Councillor Maloney, you can hear everything, can't you?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you, Dr. Garcia, for your questions. Is there anybody else in the gallery keen to ask a question or make a submission? If you'd like to just raise your hand so I can get an idea of how many. Jennifer Banto, welcome. We'd love to hear your question. Please come forward. It is. Once you start talking, it should just work.
Right. Thank you very much for asking me to come forward, because I apologise that this question was not submitted in time yesterday. Firstly, I'd like to wish everybody a happy, holy, safe family Christmas. And thank you all for your commitment to this city's welfare over the last 12 months. It's fair to say, I think, that COG is at a critical point with its heritage conservation. We're undergoing enormous change. Our second renaissance from primary to secondary and now to tertiary industries. After his election as Victoria's Premier in 1972, Rupert Hamer was quick to pass the Heritage Building Act in 1974, the first legislation in Australia to protect heritage places. This guaranteed the protection of several significant buildings, including the Windsor and Regent in Melbourne. Geelong Council responded by undertaking heritage studies to identify local heritage places, 6 studies in all, from 1986 through to 1998 to 2000. These studies were completed with small budgets. They were a great start, but now they urgently need review. The huge influx of new people to our area and the subsequent development pressure puts the character and identity of the old city centre and the rest of Greater Geelong at risk. I'd like to congratulate the Council on creating both the position of Heritage Planner, held by David Scott, and the Urban Design and Heritage Unit in Strategic Planning, so well led by Dr. Jonathan Daly. Also, congratulations to Strategic Planning staff Susan Williamson on the recent success of Amendment C422, for heritage protection of the 1850s Claremont homestead at Warren Ponds, and also congratulations on the COG submission led by Peter Smith to the Planning Panel Victoria hearing about the draft Central Geelong Framework Plan. Both these submissions were greatly enhanced by input from Dr. David Rowe. I was also involved in submitting on behalf of the National Trust to both these planning permit hearings, one which lasted for 15 days and the other for 1 day, and the COG submissions were great, really, really good. The question is, Greater Geelong has over 12,000 heritage overlays, many more than most local government areas. Does Council support increasing resources to the Planning Directorate to ensure the implementation of these overlays and to investigate the many places that are still not protected? They may have been missed or have been identified in the early studies and recommended for heritage overlays 20 years ago, but the recommendations have not been implemented. We don't want to have a repeat of the loss of an outstanding Art Deco home on Western Beach Road during 2021. We don't want that to happen again. So I'm seeking more support for more resources for this heritage area in planning, both strategic and statutory planning.
Jennifer, as always, a very well presented case, and I'll be able to answer certainly on my behalf, and I think most of the council would agree that we very, very much value heritage in Greater Geelong. As for increasing resources to the Planning Directorate, there are always competing priorities, but I might actually throw this one to the CEO and then to Gareth, who's our Director of City Services, not City Services, Director of Planning, and a whole lot of other things, just to see where that would fit in the priority list just off the top of your head. Thanks. Martin.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and very nice to see you again, Jennifer. Great to be back into the chamber and great to see you face to face. I will also ask Gareth to make a comment. I mean, like anything, we're constantly challenged as a council about resourcing and where priorities are. We absolutely concur that heritage is incredibly important. We will assess resources for heritage as we work through our budget process. You'll recall we did put some additional resources into heritage previously. We are going through an exponential phase of growth, so we are being pushed in all sorts of areas. We've got a series of programs looking at how we work through processes within council to get some efficiencies as well. So on balance, we'll make those assessments as we work through those constant challenges. But Gareth, do you want to make a comment at all?
Yeah, thank you, Martin, and thank you, Mayor. Hello, Jennifer. You raise very good points, and it certainly is. We are in the midst of the early stages of the budget process for 22-23, and certainly Jonathan has been leading bids regarding the two aspects you talked to. One about the human resources to manage some of these processes and to monitor and work with applicants and others around protecting heritage, but also regarding the overlays in the planning scheme, where there is definitely an opportunity to further update and protect our heritage properties. So that they're both serious considerations that our team will put forward, but as the Mayor and CEO recognise this, it's a competing environment where there's a lot of priorities across the organisation we'll try to do, but Jonathan, we will try to lead that to try to get some support there as well. So thank you.
I did miss one other wonderful thing that's happened, I suppose 3 years ago now, was the creation of the Heritage Advisory Committee, which is also wonderfully led by Councillor Murrahy, and that's been a wonderful relatively new development as well, and I congratulate Council on that one. Sorry, Peter, I forgot to include it. Thank you.
Thank you, and we certainly do understand the implications of not paying attention to heritage, and it is always good to have you in the chamber reminding us again. So lovely to see you. Right. Do we have any other questions or submissions from the gallery? One. Oh, no, we don't. Okay, well, we will move on to petitions and joint letters, and we have a couple tonight. I'm aware that we have two petitions to be tabled. The first one by Vanessa Whittam on behalf of Juan Del Coca. The petition is, and I'm hesitating because I'm not sure whether Vanessa was actually coming in person, which could... you are, there you are, lovely. So this petition is to secure the tree canopy of Aitken and Geelong. So please, Vanessa, welcome, and feel free to come forward and either present it or talk to us about it, whichever you prefer. Both would be great. Have a few minutes to talk to this. Thank you very much. Okay, Vanessa, please do start with...
Madam Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, our neighbourhood discovered the lack of a tree preservation laws when we got together to fight a developer's application at 2 Morgan Court. As the developer's solicitor said in court, there is no law protecting those trees. The developer could remove all the trees tomorrow and neither VCAT, the neighbours or the City of Greater Geelong can do anything about it, except for one Indigenous tree on the block. That particular developer's modus operandi was to clear the block even when they didn't need to. For example, at 5 to 11 Oxford Street, Taylor Court in Heitwen, which were particularly egregious examples. There are many other examples in Geelong, as I'm sure you all know. What is the point of council planting 100,000 trees on their own land if developers remove 90,000 trees on private land? This issue was of significant concern among the community, which is witnessed by 552 signatories on the paper petition and 1,027 signatories on the electronic petition. We feel it is our responsibility to pursue this issue, particularly on behalf of Geelong's most vulnerable neighbourhoods where people have neither the time, energy or education to take up this fight. I will summarise the background. This is what was handed out with the petition for people to read, so they knew what they were signing. Point 1, Delp and COG in 2020 commissioned a climate change and heatwave study, and it showed that Heitwen was one of 7 suburbs where residents are vulnerable due to heat risk factors. As you know, trees reduce the urban heat island effect. Council's Geelong Urban Forest website states that the urban Geelong tree canopy covers 14%, 7% on private land and 7% on public land. Peer-reviewed literature recommends 40% coverage for optimum benefit. Most trees planted by council in the past were too small for that benefit. COG's urban website states less than half are more than 5 metres in height. Sorry, more than half are less than 5 metres in height. 4, majority of significant canopy trees in Heitwen are on private property. 5, the current council strategy of planting on council land is insufficient and inadequate, and there is also insufficient planting of street trees in the increased housing diversity area where there is inadequate space for large trees in the private gardens. Point 6, council's commitment to sustainable development is commendable, and I congratulate you on the award. However, there's a disconnect there. It doesn't mean anything if it's not properly incorporated into the municipal strategic statement or the Geelong planning scheme to guide the actions of the COG planning department. Therefore, the petition calls upon the council to adopt appropriate tree protection laws, to implement a strategy of planting trees with shading canopies along major roads, to clearly incorporate its policies and policy documents regarding sustainable development into the Geelong planning scheme, and into current interpretations by the Planning Department of Clause 6501 and other relevant provisions, and urgently revisit all decisions to dispense with the minimum garden requirements in view of concerns and research about urban heat island effects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. And of course, this is just tabling, so we will take this petition, but if you do have questions or submissions to make into future, you can always bring that back to another meeting. So we'll just consider that tabling of a petition at this point. Thank you. Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Vanessa, for bringing that, and thanks to Gian as well. This was supposed to come to council last month, But I thought Councillor Maloney had it, and she probably thought I had it. And then she was online, and I thought she was supposed to be here. So there was a bit of a mix-up, so I apologise to you and Gian and those 500 people on that petition, but we finally got it in, so that's great. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Now, I do have another petition, I believe, Councillor Mason, on behalf of Karen Fox.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and I also apologise on behalf of the Bellarine councillors. We received this petition, I believe, when we had a listening post a few weeks ago, and here it is today, Mayor Asher. And interestingly, it's also about trees, but in this case, it's the residents of Talbot Street, Barwon Heads, led by Karen Fox, who object to the types of tree that have been planted in Talbot Street, and they desire 2 Agonis trees to be removed and be replaced, if at all, with smaller bird-attracting trees and shrubs. I've got about 20 signatures on this submission and table the submission, Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Mason, and thank you, Karen, for providing that petition. We did all have a conversation about that at the listening post, so thank you. Good to see that in hard copy. Section B is the reports. And first up, very special guest tonight. The very first item is to be presented by our Junior Mayor, Elliot Nicholas. I'd like to welcome and invite Elliot to come up to the second big chair and take a seat. Elliot represents the Brownbill ward and has been our Junior Mayor for 12 months
Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people, the traditional owners of this land, the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, as well as acknowledging all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people present and watching tonight. Good evening, Mayor Asher, greeting Greater Geelong councillors and directors, as well as the Youth Council and community members here tonight. Youth Council would like to first acknowledge and thank Council for their support and mentoring the last year that has helped to inform the advice presented to this evening. In our final report, we have provided several pieces of advice to Council for consideration, which has been shaped through the coaching and mentoring received from councillors in our Councillor Connect mentoring program sessions. The first piece of advice to councillors is to lead a call to arms in the Geelong community by encouraging school communities to participate in mental health first aid courses, and that these courses remain free of charge to staff and parents across our municipality. Youth Council suggests that the development of a mental health first aid calendar is undertaken, that it is distributed to schools and championed by councillors through the way of advertising campaigns and public statements of support. Our second piece of advice relates to demonstrating our support of the Afghan community. Youth Council, on behalf of the young people of Geelong, respectfully request that councillors advocate and lobby local members of Parliament and the federal government by authoring letters to Prime Minister Morrison and Immigration Minister Hawke, expressing their individual support as councillors for this deeply concerning human rights issue. More specifically, we would like them to ask the federal government to grant permanent visas for Afghan community members currently living in Australia on temporary visas, and grant their family members still living in Afghanistan permanent visas and safe passage to Australia. Youth Council believe Council has a role to play in protecting its young people through reducing the ease of access to alcohol through its licensed venues in the municipality. Youth Council would like Council to consider updating the 2013 Responsible Management of Alcohol and Other Drugs policy, and within the revised policy, consider including a targeted approach that provides specific strategies to reduce the access and supply of alcohol from venues across Geelong. Youth have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19, especially in the area of employment. Having access to traineeships where we can access supportive learning experiences that will prepare us for further opportunities is of the utmost importance. We believe the City could be a leader in this area and provide valuable and meaningful learning opportunities to many young people across Geelong. Youth Council's fourth piece of advice is for Council to consider expanding and investing in the creation of delivery of youth traineeship programs across all departments in Council to support local young people in employment. This program could include a peer network so young people involved can support one another, and a training program for staff to adequately support and mentor trainees. Youth Council's final piece of advice for Council addresses the makeshift bike jumps appearing across Geelong. Youth Council urged the Council to consider this as an opportunity to partner with and empower young people by listening to their ideas and work with them to create safe places to be physically active. The Youth Council would like the Council to allocate resources to work in partnership with the users of bike jumps to identify a suitable space for them to build and create their own jumps, and to provide young people with support, education and training from experts in this field in an ongoing capacity. I would like to finish today by emphasising to the councillors that our main objective this year has always been to advocate for youth designated spaces in Geelong. Youth Council would like to see one youth designated space in each of the wards as outlined in the Social Infrastructure Plan, with a focus on first creating a space in central Geelong. As Junior Mayor, I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank Mackenzie, the Deputy Junior Mayor, for all her support throughout the year. I would also like to congratulate and thank all the Youth Council members who have made this year's program such an amazing experience. And I'm sure that the rest of the Youth Council will agree that we are very grateful for the Council's support and guidance you have given us this year, and each of you have received a token of our appreciation for your acts of wisdom. I look forward to meeting with all councillors one last time in our final Councillor Connect mentoring session during this week. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much, Junior Mayor Nicholas. That was incredible. What a presentation. I will hand over now to Councillor Mansfield, who will move this. And who is seconding this one? Councillor Mason. Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Junior Mayor Nicholas. Congratulations on a fantastic year. I think this program just continues to go from strength to strength. The Youth Council have, you can hear from that report, have really done an incredible job of identifying key issues within their communities and not just raising them with us, but thinking through how, in a practical way, how the city can address those concerns. And yesterday in one of our mentoring sessions, we discussed the question with the Brownbill Ward youth councillors. We were discussing the difference between advocacy and leadership, and I think that's what we're seeing here tonight, is that they've actually taken it to that next level. They're not just telling us, they're not just giving voice to concerns, which is an important role, but they're actually also showing leadership by engaging with the council, with all of the councillors, and really showing us how we can assist young people. I know that in a practical sense, I've got a number of issues that have come out of those mentoring meetings that I've now asked to be put on my portfolio agendas, so we can ensure that they're followed up. Some really important issues that, tonight we heard about the issue of underage drinking and what council's role can be in that space, and we do have, we do have a role around licensing of venues, all that sort of thing, and there's a really interesting discussion to have. Our policy is also reasonably old on that issue, and there's opportunity to bring our youth council in on the discussions for any refreshing of that policy that might happen. So that's just one example of something really practical and but also very important in our community that we may not have otherwise been aware of without the advocacy of the Youth Council. The youth spaces is another one that I'd say is a great example of the work that the Youth Council have done. That now appears as one of our key advocacy priorities. So that's we've identified a number of advocacy priorities. That's gone out to all the local MPs. So they know what we'd like to get done, and finding spaces for young people is on that list of key advocacy priorities. And again, Youth Council played a huge role in achieving that. So well done. I think you've done a fantastic job, and thank you for giving voice to young people and showing such great leadership.
Here, thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield, and thank you so much, Junior Mayor Elliott. We're really so grateful for all the work you've done, and thank you, Deputy Junior Mayor Mackenzie Sinclair, and all the youth councillors for the contribution you really have made this year to be a contribution to a happier and healthier society. And I'd also like to thank the officers who also have contributed and provided a creative and safe space for all of us to work together in. And in particular, Rona Pedretti, Blake Edwards and Scarlett Cridland. Thank you also for the lovely gifts. We do appreciate them. But really the Youth Council have produced constructive and thoughtful recommendations, as we've heard tonight, on really a number of difficult and contemporary issues. Now, I want to say how particularly heartened I am from working with the youth councillors, especially in our ward mentoring sessions, where in my case, our Bellarine ward councillors worked with Emma Pape, Mackenzie Sinclair and Maria Glass. And I do know that other councillors, all other councillors, have had an equally rewarding discussions in the mentoring sessions. Only recently we explored subjects such as leadership qualities, trust and credibility, mental health and well-being of youth, and we discussed the support for Afghan and Hazara communities, human rights, aspirations for employment, alcohol strategy, as we mentioned tonight, and the best step forward on a climate emergency, and of course the Geelong Youth Hub. And so we've had some really stimulating conversations, and Junior Mayor Elliott, they've always been respectful and challenging, both. And there's been a well-development of social awareness boosted by your actions. And so I'd like to say I've learned a lot from the youth councillors, and I've learned to have confidence in the future and in our budding leaders. I've learned that our youth councillors are open-minded and that they understand they don't have all the answers, but they do have all the questions. And also that our youth councillors have a strong, healthy, inquiring minds based on clear thinking. So I'm pleased that they've report having learned something from us as well, and I'm really impressed with your report tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Looks like Councillor Aitken's getting ready to speak. Councillor Aitken.
Yeah, I must compliment you on your chairing skills. If someone adjusts their mic and then you ask them to speak next, I will take up that opportunity then. Look, 4 years ago when I brought this proposal to Council, it was unanimously supported by the Council group. And I think all of us recognised that it was going to be successful. What we didn't realise was how successful it really was going to be. And it has been a fantastic initiative for the council. We've done it differently to a lot of other councils as well too. And I think we should also recognise the youth services team and Blake in particular, because they've done a power of work this year. This is the third year of this initiative. They've actually really tailored a fantastic program that in fact is quickly becoming the golden ticket in Geelong. If you're one of the 12 lucky youth councillors in Geelong, you really are getting a golden ticket. And it's creating memories, as Elliott has spoken about, and all the councillors, junior councillors have spoken about. It is giving them lifelong memories and opportunities for participating in the program. And I'm even excited, Elliott, that next year we've already got about 120 people applied to young people to apply for this 2023 class of junior councillors, and that just shows that this program is growing wider. And as Councillor Mansfield has spoken as well too, we're actually getting really interesting ideas and propositions presented to us as councillors. And the council group needs congratulations as well too, because the councillors have embraced the program. By nearly every single councillor is making themselves accessible to the youth councillors and providing mentorship and providing advice and showing them that their comments and their beliefs are valued in the decision-making processes that we have in Geelong. So well done to the class of 2021. I look forward to the new group of youth councillors that come in 2022, but thank you to all those councillors this year that have clearly made it such a success that so many other young people in Geelong want to join you and be part of this, what is, in Victorian local government anyway, a very unique program. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Other councillors wishing to comment on this one? Councillor Contell.
Madam Mayor. Thank you, Junior Mayor Nicholas. Great job tonight and throughout the year. I apologise I haven't engaged with you guys as much as perhaps some of the other councillors. I really enjoyed your input, but what I'd really like to do is applaud you and your councillor group for the commitment and time that you've put in. I think we all understand around this table just how much work it takes and how much time it takes to commit to something like this. And whilst it's a golden ticket, it's certainly not a free ride, is it? So really appreciate your commitment, particularly at your age where you have so many things going on in your life and your livelihoods, whether it be school commitments, sporting commitments, social commitments, but for you to stand up in a forum such as this, we think it's fantastic, and we are sure that it won't be the last that we will see of you and your cohort, and more than likely it'll be us looking at you streaming live sometime in the future. And certainly look forward to voting for you guys, so well done.
Yes, you can only hope. Well said, Councillor Contell. I'll quickly just add a few points. I think that was one of the best presentations I've ever heard, Elliot. That was really terrific. You identified and articulated really good issues. It was really engaging to listen to, really broad range of suggestions you put forward as a team, and as Councillor Mansfield said, really tangible solutions as well. So well done. You've set the bar extraordinarily high for the next group, so anybody who's in the process of applying, look out, because there's a pretty high standard. Thank you also for the little plant. That's very nice and very thoughtful of you. And I'd also like to call out Scarlett and the youth officer team too, and thank Scarlett particularly for all her work in providing guidance and friendship to you and the other junior councillors. So well done, Junior Mayor. Fantastic. Any other councillors wishing to comment? Back to Councillor Mansfield to close. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Maloney? No, sorry, thank you for reminding me because I can't see Belinda behind me.
Hopefully you can hear me. I just wanted to concur with the other councillors' comments. I have never seen such professionalism, and I'm so impressed with the junior councillors and the presentations that we've just received. It's really amazing, especially in a time when we haven't been able to go out and talk to people and get the feel as to how COVID and lockdowns have impacted the youth of Geelong. And I'm really appreciative for getting that feedback and all the other issues that we've spoken about. And I just wanted to commend the Junior Council for bringing those to us in such a professional manner with such aplomb and poise, and I have not ever seen anything like it. I hope that for those of you who are looking to run in the future, you'll perhaps look up the Women in Local Democracy, either to run as a candidate or perhaps support another candidate. And I'm looking, I spoke to the candidates, Maddie and Eva, in our last Cardinia meeting, that perhaps, talk to some people if you would like some support in that. But I just wanted to say a massive thank you for hitting us with those really hard-hitting questions, because that's really what makes us think about what we need to do to shift issues in our local area of Geelong. So thank you so much. Thanks, Marisha.
Councillor Maloney. If there's no other councillors, I'll go back to Councillor Mansfield to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you to my fellow councillors for all of your comments. Couple of things. One is that it's important to note that the youth councils identified a number of issues that won't necessarily be resolved in their 12-month period. That time goes, as we know as councillors, goes very quickly, and actions don't necessarily always, they don't always follow immediately. Local government can be a slow-moving beast sometimes as well. But we do capture those issues that you've raised. Each and every youth council raises, and some of them remain legacy issues that are passed on to the next council to continue working on. That everything you do is built upon by that next council, which is fantastic. I'd also like to, I know no other councils have mentioned it, but the youth development team who support this program really do an incredible job. It is being looked at by other councils. They want to replicate it. I think they, when I know we were at a presentation at another council, and I don't think they could really get their heads around how much work goes into running this program as successfully as it has been. So well done, Robin, to Blake, Scarlett and Rona. You just do an amazing job, and supporting young people, but also supporting us as councillors to engage with the program in a way that's meaningful for everyone. So thank you very much for all your work.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. So we'll put the Youth Council final report 2021 to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you once again. Okay, item 2 is the final Packington Street, Geelong West and Gordon Avenue Urban Design Framework, to be moved by Councillor Murrahy and seconded by Councillor Mansfield. Thank you, Councillor Murrahy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report recommends the adoption of the final Packington Street, Geelong West and the Gordon Avenue Urban Design Framework, UDF, to allow for a planning scheme amendment and delivery of infrastructure upgrades to start. Madam Mayor, this is one of those matters that has garnished considerable angst within the community. I want to start by thanking those that have shown interest over a period of time through emails, and there's been many of those, meetings, submissions, phone calls, etc. It's about having their say on this much-loved area of Geelong. We'll see a few in the public gallery tonight. There has been a considerable number of changes made to this UDF since its first inception, and I believe the right approach tonight has been taken by separating the Gordon Avenue and the Packington Street Heritage Retail area from the Packington Street North Precinct, which will go out for further community consultation in the new year. So I want to be clear, tonight is about the Gordon Avenue and Packington Street Heritage Retail Precinct, not Packington North. Backtracking by way of explanation, on October 2018, this council endorsed the City of Greater Geelong Settlement Strategy. The goal in that strategy was to provide 50% of future housing needs for Geelong through urban infill, and Packington Street was identified through that strategy to help provide that. And Gordon Avenue was identified as an area into which allowed for more residential, office and retail space in Council's retail strategy 2016 to 2036. Over the next 25 years, Packington Street and Gordon Avenue will be a vibrant, compact and thriving urban village that is a place of inclusion, a place of opportunities and a place for people. PACO is the home to one of Victoria's biggest celebrations of cultural diversity and offers some of the best shopping and dining experiences in Geelong, in a backdrop of heritage buildings and community spirit. And by recognising that PACO is a successful and well-known part of Geelong with distinct character and strong community feel, any work is about improving, not changing. So I think everybody's in agreement that they love PACO, but I believe it's time some real love and attention is paid to it. And this UDF achieves that by cleaning up the street and improving footpaths with public art, festive lighting and places to sit, clear signage, making it easier for everyone to walk around and cross the street, activating existing laneways, extending activity on the street after hours, free Wi-Fi in public places, better use of existing pocket parks and curbs. To highlight Gordon Avenue, it's been It's long been a street that you pass through, not so much a destination unless you had a purpose to visit. This UDF identifies the potential for Gordon Avenue for larger sites, introduction of street trees and vegetation. It provides more open space, public art and street furniture, improving bus stops and connections to central Geelong and the Geelong train station, making it pedestrian safer and with clear signage. So this vision is that Gordon Avenue will develop into a vibrant, sustainable, mid-rise precinct, delivering varied residential and mixed-use development set in a green, leafy, high-quality environment, whilst acting as a key access way to the western suburbs of Geelong. I understand and acknowledge the general concerns, overshadowing, traffic congestion, privacy, setbacks, just to name a few. These issues were all addressed in the UDF, and I'm comfortable with the explanations given and explained and addressed. And when I first saw these plans for Paco, Gordon Avenue, maybe over 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, I liked it then, seeing what could be achieved, seeing the vision. Nothing much has changed my mind, and I believe a councillor's role is very much about balance, identifying what we have today to what it could look like in 20 to 30 years' time, and how do we achieve it. It's really understood that whilst there are numerous objections to what is proposed, there are also a big number of support for it. In fact, the Geelong West traders not only support it, but suggest it could have been more expansive in height. And also the ironic fact about all this, that if this UDF had been supported earlier, the 2 towers in Gordon Avenue may never have been granted, and if we don't act on this now for Paco, there's a chance the proposal for a much higher development could be lodged. So I want to clearly state there is no increase in height in the heritage retail precinct in this UDF. There's been much said about the village feel about Paco. This UDF, I believe, protects that feel and in fact, in my view, enhances and protects it. So I encourage all my fellow councillors to support this item. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murrahy. Councillor Mansfield.
I'll reserve my right.
Other councillors wish to comment on this one? Councillor Howard.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to concur with the comments made thus far. It's well documented, the love for Paco and what it provides for our community. I'd also just like to acknowledge, perhaps to go back in time, the former Mayor Jeff Brown from that area. He was very instrumental in the development of Paco and making sure Paco had a very special feel about it. He was instrumental in securing land for car parking. He identified that early, and he was very instrumental in that. We see today again Paco being viewed closely for what it will present to the future, and I think the UDF covers off what I guess is expected in a 21st century community. And yes, Paco will always will look a little bit different, but I think the actual, as Jeff used to say, the soul of it will never be changed down there, because it just has that kind of feel about the whole street, even from the north right down to the south. Now, Paco Street is one of those unique streets that we have in our region. So I fully support the UDF design as presented today. Thank you.
Councillor Howard. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, I'm nervous about this UDF because Packington Street is actually one of that part in Geelong West is actually one of the most livable parts of Geelong. And I'm nervous because the council report actually basically says that if we adopt the UDF, we'll move to a planning scheme, and which will have an amendment process, which will give an opportunity for further consultation. Now that sounds all really good, but then you read the report further, and the report says that if the UDF is adopted, the council's going to begin work on the infrastructure planning. So in fact, there isn't going to be more consultation, because we're going to start doing the works associated with it. So that makes me nervous, because what that's telling me is that the community consultation in the amendment process is a planning engagement process. It's actually not a genuine process to actually address the significant concerns that are being raised, still being raised by this particular UDF. And as a consequence, if there's any area of Geelong that deserves a People's Assembly and a community engagement process, it's actually the Packington Street Strip area, because the engagement of that community is such that it deserves to have an engagement process significantly more than just a planning engagement process. And I personally believe that's actually what's been the major problem with this UDF, in that what's happened is our engagement has come from a planning perspective about we have to plan an outcome. What we need to respect is that this is actually one of the most livable parts of Geelong, and in fact it probably needs community engagement and community development engagement to actually help deliver a UDF or planning framework that the community will actually embrace and understand. The level of animosity and the level of anxiety and the level of concern by those people, people love Packington Street, and they are concerned that this process and this plan will actually destroy it. Now, it may not, but the issue is we have to respect that that's the level of concern that there is in the community about this proposal. And if we had adopted an engagement process which was about community development and community involvement, I think we would have had a lot more people supportive of this particular process. But unfortunately, it's been driven primarily from a planning perspective, and I think that the damage that it will do is that it will cause Packington Street to not be the jewel in the crown that we so love today. So I won't be supporting the UDF.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I've been involved in this process since it commenced some years ago now, and I do commend officers in trying to consult and communicate under extremely challenging circumstances, particularly right in the middle of a pandemic. And they have actually probably consulted on this matter, particularly being a UDF, more than I have seen in my time of about 10, 11 years here on council. Notwithstanding that, there is still a need for more. And because whilst the officers tried as hard as they possibly could, unfortunately they just did not have the platform to be able to engage the community. As Councillor Murrahy has said, we've received, I would say, thousands of touch points, whether it be verbal, through email, social media, phone calls, meetings, but there are still thousands and thousands of people in that Geelong West area and the broader Geelong area that are not aware of what the UDF will do or have an impact on them for in the next 20, 30 years. PACO works, and it's one of the better examples of a shopping strip in Geelong. It's one that functions very well. Councillor Harwood referred to some of the reasons for that. It's because of the planning and the work that our former councillors and the City of Geelong West put into investing into that area. The UDF, in some aspects, really does put question into what the capacity of parking will be, the management of traffic, the installation of more established bike lanes into a very narrow strip already will, really has still some question. Councillor Aitken talked about consultation. There is still opportunity for authentic consultation to occur, and really it must happen. I think that the UDF is too big. It's taking on too many complexities, and something more in line with a structure plan or planning guidelines would be more appropriate. I'm also really concerned that over the last couple of years, whilst we've been working through this UDF, very little maintenance has occurred on Packington Street, and as a result of that, it has deteriorated significantly. The community is just far too divided for me to feel comfortable in supporting this UDF. So as a result of that, I won't be supporting it tonight. I would like to see improvements in the area, but further consultation is required, and I think a more improved plan.
Councillor Clontell, and well timed. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And whilst I agree with a lot of the comments that are already made tonight on both for and against, I've seen the work that's gone into the UDF and the extensive community consultation. Whilst it's not the face-to-face consultation that we're used to without COVID, we had to do something, and the online forums were the only ones that we were allowed to do at the time. I think this is not the end of the consultation. There will be plenty more times into the future about what this particular UDF, the nature of which it will take itself through the planning and scheme amendment and the delivery of the infrastructure. There is plenty more opportunities to have that consultation. I'm pleased that the officers have listened to the community and segmented out the northern parts of Packington Street for further consultation, because there was many submissions received in relation to that section. So I think this is the council hearing the community, and I think what we want to do is make sure that we can get to the planning process and actually put those height limits in Gordon Avenue, because we've seen that some of the previous applications that have already been approved and approved by VCAT are getting higher and higher. So if we don't do this and allow that planning scheme amendment in the future, then we aren't protecting the area of Gordon Avenue. So I'll be supporting this, the officer's recommendation tonight. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Other comments? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just been listening to what's been said, and I can only go on what's been said and what I've been emailed, because I don't live in Geelong West, although I do frequent the area quite a bit. I personally think the two need to be separated from Gordon Avenue and Packington Street. I think Gordon Avenue is a very different beast to what Paco is. I've heard good responses about development in Gordon Avenue, and not one positive one in Paco. So is it possible to separate the two from Gordon Avenue to Packington Street, or are we too far in now?
The recommendation in that sense, Councillor Nelson. And we essentially have, because there's more consultation allowed for the north.
And I see that it does, but I just think the two are different. They're different areas. I mean, I know they're very close together, but they're very different places. So I think I'm against what most people are saying. I think it'll get up, but hopefully we get some more community consultation on both areas. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Other councillors commenting on this one? Councillor Maloney, no, not waving a hand. Looks like you, Councillor Mansfield.
Thanks, Mayor Asher, and look, thanks to the councillors who've made comment on this. I think there's some really good points raised, again, as Councillor Grisbeck said, on all sides. I definitely, I guess I've thought about all of these issues quite deeply over the last couple of years, again, been involved in the process since the inception. It's a really tough one because, as has been said, it is a fantastic area, but the risk with fantastic areas, if you do nothing at all to plan for the future, is that they stop being fantastic areas because, as we've heard, there's some deterioration. The needs of the people in and around the area change. Our city is changing as well. We've got huge population growth, and we need to manage that in a way that retains livability for everyone. And so the options we have are we can just let things happen as they naturally might happen under existing conditions, and you'll have uncoordinated planning. We'll have buildings at heights that maybe aren't acceptable to the community but are allowed under the current under the current planning regulations. So we've seen that occurring. There are a number of other sites all throughout that area that are vulnerable to development that's well in excess of what's in the UDF and even further in excess of what the community would like to see. And you'll end up with what we've seen happen to a lot of the fabulous shopping strips in Melbourne, where there's really been a lot of uncontrolled planning, uncontrolled development. But on the flip side, I think it's a really important thing that we get this right and retain what is so loved about this area, that community feel, that heritage aspect, the retail precinct. And so I've been, listening to the community throughout this process. I do think this is a good recommendation in that we separate out the northern end. There are still issues we need to work through, and I do think we need to do some although I know our office has done some great engagement, we need to do more engagement and do more meaningful engagement so that we can all sort of try and get the community and the council on board together with where that end goes to. There are a lot of competing issues here. We've got population growth, we've got the impacts of climate change, we've got some social equity issues and increasing density in sort of medium, low to rise density areas around key service areas like this is really strongly evidence-based in improving health outcomes, improving livability, reducing emissions, improving social equity. So there's a good sound evidence base to what we're trying to achieve here, but it's absolutely vital we bring the community along on the journey, and so I'm supportive of the recommendation, and I'm really looking forward to some further community engagement on that section.
Thanks, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Murrahy to close.
Yes, thank you, and I thank the fellow councillors who have commented on this item. Just to clarify, I think there's some real misinformation out there in relation to this UDF, and I guess just in relation to public consultation, it's been out 3 times, and I think over a period of 18 months, there's been deadlines extended. So it raises the question, how much is enough? And we could keep going out, but will there be new matters raised? I doubt it. I think we know the issues now. As I say, I thank everyone for their comments, but I think now is the time to get improvements started with Gordon Avenue, Packington Street Retail Heritage Precinct, and support this tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Murrahy. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Madam Mayor, with respect, I would like a division on this one, if that's okay.
Those for? Councillors Murrahy, Mansfield, Mason, Sullivan, Asher, Harwood and Grisbeck. Against? And Maloney, I beg your pardon, Councillor Maloney. Sorry, those against, Councillor Aitken, Councillor Nelson, Councillor Contel. Thank you. Okay, item 3 is amendment. We do have a conflict of interest declared by Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you. I will say what it is as you walk out. Amendment C339, flood overlays and zones, the Lara flood study, Lower Barwon and Moorabool rivers and the Bellarine Peninsula coastal hazard. Consideration of submissions. This is to be moved by Councillor Aitken and seconded by Councillor Harwood. Thank you, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, this is actually a significant piece of an amendment to our planning scheme that's been, and overlays that exists in the city of Greater Geelong. There were 3 major studies that have been undertaken in the last 4 to 5 years in Geelong. One was the Lara flood study, one was the Lower Barwon and Moorabool rivers, and one was the Bellarine Peninsula coastal hazards. Now, tonight we're actually recommending to move 2 of those areas associated with the amendment to the next stage of the process, and that is the Lower Barwon and Moorabool rivers and the Bellarine Peninsula coastal hazard area. And what this amendment primarily does is to revise the flood overlays in those particular localities. We have far more significant mapping capacity to actually understand what areas will be affected by flooding. And importantly, the Bellarine Peninsula one actually should be of interest to those people that are concerned about the climate, because the flood overlay that we'll be introducing with this amendment for the Bellarine area is actually related towards the inundation of the rising seas in our coastal areas in Bellarine. And so this flood overlay and building regulations will actually respond to the fact that we have had a significant amount of work that's been undertaken, in particular along our coastal areas in the Bellarine, and it has identified that rising sea levels associated with climate change means that a number of areas that previously weren't covered by flood overlays and building regulations associated with rising sea levels will need to do that in terms of this proposed amendment. The Lara flood study at this point of stage has been chosen to be deferred from the amendment, and the reason for that is that out of the 561 submissions that this amendment did receive, Mayor Asher, 505 of them actually came from Lara. So the unrest that this particular amendment caused in that local community does need significant further investigation by the officers, and they've acknowledged that in the report that's been presented before Council tonight. So they are suggesting that because of the significance of this particular amount of work, that we do proceed with the Lower Barwon and Moorabool rivers. And what we do is we also proceed with the Bellarine Peninsula coastal hazard areas that have been identified as well too. Lara will now be looked at separately, and if the officers believe they can address the concerns that have been raised with the 505 objections, they will bring a further report back to Council. And an option for Council is to abandon that, the Lara component of this amendment as well too, if there is not enough time or appropriate responses to the community during the next couple of months. So I think that's a good summary, Mayor Asher. I hope it's educated our councillors and also the community, and I look forward to comments from other councillors on this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. You've summed it up beautifully. Councillor Harwood.
Mayor Asher, there's a touch of irony in this one insofar as the flood overlays of the particular areas we're talking about. The Lower Barwon and Moorabool rivers in particular have been under threat for some time for water flow, so it's interesting we're having that discussion about the flood overlays, and the Lara issue is predominantly about the new development out in that area where it's quite substantial, and they need to make sure that their overlays are in the right order. So I have nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and I thank Councillor Aitken for his succinct summary of it all, and I echo what he said. And clearly a lot of the work has been done on the Bellarine, for the Bellarine, and I was part of the Coastal Adaptation Committee, which made recommendations in the first place, and I'm well aware that all of the recommendations, all of the data is well founded. And the overlays will help to reduce the risk of property damage as a result of stormwater, riverine and coastal flooding. This will alleviate any culpability in the future of the city or the council in the case of any future flooding. And it's our duty to take care that the risk of flooding is mitigated. And so as a result, anybody that wants to build a new house in some of these overlay areas will have to have their floor levels above a certain datum. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Other comments? Councillor Aitken to close.
Nothing further to add, Mayor Asher. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Could we please ask Councillor Grisbeck to come back in? Welcome back, Councillor Grisbeck. Item 4 is the City's Race to Zero Climate Action Campaign, to be moved by Councillor Maloney and seconded by Councillor Mansfield. Thanks, Councillor Maloney.
Thank you so much, Mayor Asher. And I think it's fitting when we talk about floods and potential for climate, damage and emergencies. It's good to know that we're in a La Nina year, but that also can promote flooding. So tonight, Council is asked to consider joining the city's Race to Zero, which is a United Nations climate action campaign. And at the moment, there are 17 Australian councils and I think there's about 120 cities around the world that are really investing and participating in this campaign. It encourages a bunch of cities, regions and businesses to really get together and work together, advocating more urgent action on climate and also reducing our emissions to net zero by 2050, although Council has made a much more impressive target, I must admit. So this is the largest ever alliance committed to achieving net zero carbon emissions. And as a council, we've recently committed to working in a different way to make sure this happens, to become a climate-ready region and city. We also need to think about maintaining our green spaces, protecting and enhancing biodiversity, thinking about water management, speaking of flooding, and all of that is part of this campaign. So it would be really good to grab some nuggets of gold from this and some advice from the UN, but also to solidify some of the commitments that we've just made in the previous council meeting. But I'll leave it for other councillors to comment on this one further. Thanks, Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And look, Councillor Maloney summarised this really well. I think there's a global United Nations campaign that this motion is recommending we become part of, but it really aligns beautifully with the climate change response plan that we endorsed at our last meeting, and I think just really builds on the commitments that we have already made. So it's fantastic to actually be part of not just be doing our taking action on our own. This is we're actually part of a global effort here. So I'm very supportive of this motion, and I guess it's just important to note that it is a race. Yeah.
That's right. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, I was really encouraged and heartened by Scott Morrison's commitment in October to Australia achieving net zero by 2050. And really this is our part that we play in pushing the wheel, partnering with all levels of government and obviously the community to achieve that outcome. And if we can get there earlier, even better. So it's good that the Prime Minister is leading from the front, and we're going to help in achieving those goals that Australia has now committed to.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other comments? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and I echo all of what's been said. It really is the city's race to zero is really an element of a very much larger set. In fact, there's the United Nations is 193 countries, and all 193 countries have endorsed the SDGs, and 130 of those countries have committed to net zero. Not only that, there's another 733 cities throughout the world, but then we've got the universities. All of the leading universities in Australia have supported this and have joined in with the 622 world universities. So I'm really pleased that we're all getting together now, we're all pulling together. It's wonderful. And I hope in the near future that our city will have a fleet of electric vehicles, including utes, and perhaps a bulk purchase in a similar way to our zero carbon electricity bulk deal through MAV. I do indeed hope that we can take this up with the MAV. It's a practical way that we can come forward and set an example with our electric vehicles. So we're no longer followers, we're indeed the Sustainable City of the Year, and champions for climate action, a city of the future, a clever and creative future with an aspirational design in our mind.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other comments on this one? I'll go back to Councillor Maloney to close. Thank you, Councillor Maloney.
Thank you so much, Mayor Usher, and thanks for the comments from the other councillors. I really hope that Mr Morrison considers picking up a hose and maybe putting down a Hawaiian shirt for once. But I really think that it's a great sign that things are moving in the right direction, that this is a topic of conversation. And part of the commitment is pledging, planning, proceeding, I think publishing. So really talking about what we're doing, which is really important. Not only just taking action, but talking about it so that we can lead from the front as well, as Councillor Contel mentioned, and also talk about it so that other nations and other groups can engage too. I love that the goals of this alliance are seeking to create a more inclusive and resilient economy. I mean, that's something that we need more than ever these days. And I think that standing behind this commitment would really help to reaffirm our commitment to, our goals that we've recently set. But also, I forgot to mention that this is free, so it doesn't cost us anything. We get a lot of advantages out of that, and we can leverage the expertise from these partners all around to help us in our journey, because we're finding this a bit of a new thing as we go along as well. So really appreciate the comments, and also I would invite, if we're going to accept this invitation tonight, I'd invite people to join with us in recognising the global climate emergency, looking at science-based targets and how we can overcome this together as a collective. Thank you, Mayor Usher.
Councillor Maloney, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 5 is the SRV grants, the Local Sports Infrastructure Fund, to be moved by Councillor Sullivan and seconded by Councillor Mason. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. We have before us right now a recommendation that approves the submission of an application to the Sport and Recreation Victoria Local Sporting Infrastructure Fund on behalf of the Leopold Tennis Club Pavilion Redevelopment. And the second part of this is that we approve a pre-commitment to the 22-23 budget of $720,000 towards said project. Now, I can think of few projects, if any, that are more deserving of funding than this club. The Leopold Tennis Club is an integral part of the Leopold community, and it has the membership numbers behind it to prove it. We, as Ballarat Ward councillors, have all had the opportunity to hear from the community on this. And this opportunity we have right now to apply for further funding is too good to pass up. What we have here right now, it also shows that once again this is a council that's willing to make these decisions to invest in its people, to invest in our communities, because this does tie in with our number one strategic direction of healthy, inclusive and caring communities. I must admit, though, that as well, alongside the Leopold Tennis Club, the Port Arlington Tennis Club is also bursting at the seams, as well as the Port Arlington Table Tennis Club as well. So this just shows how popular this sport is for people for all ages across our entire municipality. So I wholeheartedly support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Usher, and not much left for me to say. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. It really is great news that we have reached this stage, and we all recognise that the Leopold Tennis Club members and executive has really made a long contribution to their community and its ever-ageing and non-compliant facilities. And it is true that the current pavilion doesn't contain change rooms or toilets, and as such the members of the club have had to use other toilets located across the reserve. And the disconnection from the courts and the clubhouse are a safety concern for female and junior members of the club, and the current pavilion requires renewal, expansion to provide safe and compliant facilities to future female participation and opportunities for the club. And this project is the last remaining, and has been the last one for some time, remaining infrastructure priority to delivered within the 2011 Leopold Memorial Reserve Master Plan. So it's been really hard to witness and share the disappointment of the club over recent years after they've just failed to make the grade on a number of occasions. But this time the many criteria are met in our SIP and the G21 Regional Tennis Strategy and the SRV Female Friendly Facilities Program. So, well, really, this time I'm sure we're going to witness some joy. And if this motion's passed, and I'm sure it will be, we do have to make a pre-commitment so that the government contributions are assured, and there's every reason to pass this motion. Mayor Asher.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Mason. I certainly agree the Leopold Tennis Club has been very, very resilient and they're very, very deserving, so I fully support this motion as well. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. First of all, Councillor Sullivan, there are many deserving projects in the Brownville ward, but I do agree with you that on this occasion, I'm thrilled, as I'm sure all the councillors would be, that this project has been submitted. There's no doubt that they have been advocating strongly for many years, and in fact, at our most recent councillor listening posts, Councillor Mansfield and I had the President come and talk to us about this project and gave us really good insight as to why it was important. And I must admit, I wasn't all that aware of it, even though they had been advocating for a number of years. So it was well worth his effort to come and talk to us, because it gave us very good insight into what the requirements were, and obviously he then followed up with written communication as well. And so I'm very happy to support this project, because the community and the club are very deserving of some support. So I look forward to seeing the project completed.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other comments? Councillor Murrahy.
Of course, we have to keep our fingers crossed that the application is successful.
Yeah.
And as Councillor Mason has said, that this project almost made the grade last year in relation to our budget items, and in fact I think it was just the next one off the rank. So we do keep our fingers crossed that it's successful, and the commitment of $720,000 pre-commitment for our budget going forward. It's a great opportunity, and to complete the Leopold Memorial Reserve Master Plan. The tennis club was, I think, the last one remaining to complete that plan. So, as I say, I hope we hear, I'm not sure when we're expected to hear this news, or the good or bad, so I'm looking for some indication around the room, but I'm not getting it. Thanks, Martin, for giving me that stare. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Murrahy. Any other comments on this one? Mayor Sullivan to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also thank my fellow councillors for their words of support on this project. I have great faith that we will be successful in this. The Maloney Ward's had a great track of late of being able to secure funding for all these worthy projects that we have, and to have this project in particular be up so high on our council budget list last year just shows how deserving it is and how appropriate that we put up funding by this meeting right here. So happy to move the motion.
Lovely, thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried, and fingers crossed. Item 6 is the procurement policy, to be moved by Councillor Aitken and seconded by Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Thank you, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. It's actually written up that it's an update of an existing policy, but it's actually significantly more than that. It changes council's procurement policy quite significantly. And how does it do that? Well, up until now, price has actually been the major focus of our procurement policy that we have in the City of Greater Geelong, so that our contracts and our expenditure that we undertake has been looked at the price competitiveness of those works. And what this policy actually is doing is making a major shift that quality is important to the council group. We respect that sustainability and innovation need to be brought into our procurement expenditure as well too. And importantly, we're actually going to be setting some key targets going forward. This is the first stage of the procurement policy, which is giving the basic framework of it. And in fact, it also introduces a centralisation of our procurement systems. It's amazing to find out that we actually do have multiple different procurement places, and offices have different delegations within the City of Greater Geelong, and this policy is trying to tighten that all up. It actually is also going to create significant management reporting that's going to help us as the council group to be able to look at the value and how we're actually managing our spend, because we're actually talking about a significant amount of money our capital spend is running at the present time around about $110 to $120 million per year, and our non-employment expenditure in the City of Greater Geelong is anywhere between $200 and $300 million per annum. So this is a significant amount of investment that we put into our community with our procurement. And what this policy is actually doing, and our manager of procurement should be congratulated, Travis Kirkwood. He's led the charge to actually say we can make a significant difference in our community. And when we adopt our social procurement framework, which is a second stage of this policy, it will feature key targets, which include employment opportunities for people who reside in what we call our disadvantaged areas of Geelong. So we actually make a commitment and say, we are going to spend this amount of money if you actually employ and give these opportunities to those people that come from those areas. We're also going to have a focus on Indigenous businesses as well too, as part of our reconciliation with that particular community. Our procurement policy is going to make a direct intervention and actually say, we will seek out and engage Indigenous businesses to actually provide services under our procurement policy. And an important one for the 4 female councillors on the City of Greater Geelong. We used to have 3, we've increased to 4, and at the next election we hope to have at least 6. But there's also going to be a gender focus as well too, so that non-traditional trades, so we're going to try and encourage procurement, which actually tries to assist non-traditional employment opportunities for females in particular under our... So it's actually quite a significant change from what we have in terms of a policy position at the present time. I keep using the word significant for this report, but it is because the amount of work that Travis and his team has put into this document is industry leading. And I think the council group should be really proud of what's been presented to us tonight, and certainly the second phase, which is anticipated to occur in July next year, to set those targets so we can actually measure how our procurement dollars are actually meeting our expectations as the council group. So I commend this policy to the councillors, and I look forward to its implementation.
Well done. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Mayor Sullivan, what have you got to say now?
No, Councillor Aitken is quite right. We spend over $240 million annually on procuring goods, works and services each year. And where those dollars go, where they go into our community is vitally important. Like, how do we use those dollars? What businesses do they go to? Where do they end up? What communities do they end up supporting, both directly and indirectly? So this is a fantastic policy. Glad to see it coming out, and all credit to Travis Kirkwood and Michael DeGina for the hard work that's gone into date.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And at the risk of repeating what everyone else said, I'm really supportive of this policy, and I'm really looking forward to the social procurement framework coming back to us to look at in more detail. But from what we've heard, there really is an expansion of our understanding of what value is. So when you're talking about value for money, it's not, it's not just getting the cheapest item. It's about thinking about the full life cycle of what we get, so quality, circular economy, all that kind of stuff that we're really trying to, what we're talking a lot about, we're actually going to be able to make a real difference, because that's where we'll be investing, and we'll be supporting those parts of our those businesses that are able to demonstrate that they can provide that broader concept of value, and not necessarily just the cheapest service or product for us. So, it can be very powerful what we do with our expenditure. We send a message, but we also help to support innovation, support various social enterprises. And can make a real difference in the community. So I'm really supportive of this, and that shift that we're making to think much more broadly about what value means.
Right. Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Howard.
Madam Mayor, I just want to add to some of the comments, in particular that we adopting this particular policy, hopefully this evening. And again, I think it'll be quite a shift in how we've gone about it from previous years and decades, really, about concentrating on the outcome, which is getting a quality outcome, quality over the quantity, I suppose, of what it might look like, because we've spent literally hundreds of millions of dollars even in more recent years, and there are still, I've found, still issues in relation to the actual finished product. What we're looking to do here is to make sure that that finished product has a whole of life view about it, and we want it to be long-term quality finish to all the products, all the infrastructure that we build. And just a very special mention again to Travis Kerwood, who has been the driver of this particular policy. I guess a quiet achiever in the organisation, but his knowledge and expertise and willingness to roll up the sleeves and really work hard for the city, particularly in this area, and not only get the best possible outcome, but also to save money where we can, which is also a critical factor in the discussion. But the work of Travis has at times perhaps gone a little unnoticed, but tonight it's on full show. And no doubt into the future, his work will be demonstrated by the results we get in the infrastructure. Thank you.
Councillor Harwood. Any other comments? Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And I just wanted to echo Deputy Mayor Sullivan's comments about local dollars being spent. I think that's incredibly important within a circular economy. The businesses that get the injection of capital from us expending in their business flows on and pays us back, triple-fold or more. And they buy local groceries and it goes on from there. And it's a wonderful proposition to be encouraging, especially the social procurement. And I think also, if I can draw your attention to those of you playing at home like myself, page 242 outlines a really incredible table of how we do this, how we exact this. And I think that's so important. We get a lot of questions, I certainly do, from constituents saying, why are we spending this, why are we putting money here or there? And this is a really great and easy way to see how and transparently how we're spending our dollars. And I think that this table gives a really great overview of how strategic our CEO Martin Carter can be with future decision making. So I hope that this enables him to really take the reins in echoing what we would like to see strategically within the organisation. So thank you so much to the team for all your work on this document. Thanks, Mayor Asher.
Councillor Maloney. Any other comments? Back to Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, my only other comment, I've actually enjoyed working with the procurement team on this one. And the reason being is because it's a good example that as elected officials, if we can focus on strategic policy, it's actually going to have a broader impact in the organisation. Now, we probably always thought our vote was most important on each of those tenders that come before us at each of these council meetings. But in fact, what this policy has actually taught me is that you can significantly influence every single one of those tenders that come before council if you adopt a strategic focus and policy associated with what you're attempting to do. So I've really enjoyed the opportunity to put and Councillor Anthony Aitken flavour on this particular policy and document, and I've really enjoyed working with the officers that have actually brought this forward to us as well too, and I hope they have enjoyed the process as much as I have as well too, Councillor.
Right.
Thanks, Mayor Asher.
I'm sure they have, Councillor Aitken. Okay, let's put this motion to the vote. All those in favour?
Lovely.
Those against? Carried. Item 7 is the Special Rates and Charges Council Policy, to be moved by Councillor Aitken and seconded by Councillor Maloney. Thank you, Councillor Aitken.
Probably is appropriate. I've talked about the policy that's given me a lot of joy. This one's given me a lot of distress.
Pain.
As the chair of City Services, this is actually about roads, footpaths, shoulders, and curb and channeling. And the City of Greater Geelong over the next 5 years has about $25.6 million associated of works under our SRC policy. And the difficulty that we have with this particular policy is that we'd love to pay for 100% of everything that we do within the City of Greater Geelong. But the reality is that we wouldn't undertake the same level of works as what we are proposing to do. Now, what this policy does is it tries to simplify the process at which we undertake special rates and charges schemes within the City of Greater Geelong. And the team led by Debbie have tried their utmost to come up with a very transparent model about how we can actually improve our special rates and charges schemes within the City of Greater Geelong. They have attempted to simplify it so that a layperson should be able to look at this policy and actually say, this is the cost apportionment system that's been put in place in the City of Greater Geelong. For the first time ever, we're actually saying that if there is 80% or more community benefit from either the road, the footpath, the curb and channeling or the shouldering, and there's a model of how we actually calculate that figure, that council will pay 100% of the works associated with that particular scheme. And it also shifts financially the burden of our schemes over the next 5 years if we adopt this policy, that council will contribute more to these programs than what has occurred in the past. And the cost apportionment model is significantly putting more financial burden back onto the general ratepayer as opposed to the individual with the policy if it is adopted tonight. It is difficult because there's an incredible disparity of views amongst this council group in terms of special rates and charges, but I think the officers have attempted to find the sweet spot to actually balance the need to actually undertake these works and maximise the amount of spend we can undertake without putting financial distress to our annual budget and our 4-year budget forecast that we now present within the City of Greater Geelong. So I'm interested to see what other councillors have to think about it, but I certainly would ask you to have a sympathetic view that this is being a more transparent policy than what we have now. It does cost shift some of these works back towards the general rate revenue of the City of Greater Geelong, and it does try to put in a simple and transparent way for a member of the community to understand how we've actually come up with the cost apportionment system that we have for those particular works.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And thank you, Councillor Aitken, for that wonderful introduction to this updated policy. I think that this goes quite a long way into remediating some of the patchwork quilt that we have amongst our footpaths, which can be a bit disjointed if you had a look around some of the older suburbs that propped up about 10 years ago or more. Some places had footpaths, some didn't, and this creates an equity issue, especially with respect to accessibility. So we want to remediate that, and I think that this policy goes a long way in towards doing that in the way that we are more fair and equitable, especially with financial sustainability, looking at our risk profile as an organisation, making sure that we're spending money where it's needed, especially with respect to that 80% community benefit. One other thing I love about this policy is it also incorporates community engagement, which we as councillors get direct feedback and we get engagement from constituents who need their paths updated. But it is really great to see the overall benefit from the community in the different areas and pockets where we might not have a bit of oversight there. So really looking forward to seeing how other councillors feel about this policy. Thanks, Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Any other comments? Councillor Nelson, testing the mic.
I was,
Go.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Some of the councillors around the table know how I feel about special rates and charge schemes. A lot of the community does. I don't think they're fair. I'm struggling to understand what community benefit greater of 80% is. I'd like to see that, how that works, because surely a footpath has 100% community benefit. But I'd like to see what that matrix looks like. I think we should put 5% of our general revenue on footpaths and just get them done. The greatest thing I get complaints about, either email, phone call or on social media, is for footpaths. Because Heighton is just, as Councillor Maloney said, it's a patchwork quilt, and it surely is. It's just not safe. And and Scenic Road is probably one of the most dangerous roads, where mums push their prams up and down Scenic Road, and why we can't fund that and why we haven't funded that in the last 11 years is just embarrassing as a councillor and as a city. So while I will support this, I'm disappointed that it doesn't go far enough. Thanks.
Councillor Nelson. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And my point is similar to Councillor Nelson. I think it's okay to have a special rates and charges policy. It's always about the implementation of such policy, and I think we need to have a bit more of a discussion at council about how we apply the policy and where it lands on particular items. We've all had the conversations in this chamber about different types of SRCs that have come through, or how we apply the policy as a basis at council. So I'm saying I'm comfortable with the way it landed, and I will support it tonight. But I think there is more to be said about how we use SRCs within the City of Greater Geelong, and it needs to be constructive and consistent across the whole municipality. Thanks, Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and absolutely agree with Councillor Grisbeck. That there are, we often hit sort of problems, particularly around the application of SRCs to footpaths. They are a contentious issue, and there is an expectation that that's something that council will just provide for the community. I'd be up for a discussion around putting more revenue into building footpaths, but the problem comes up then if we start treating one area differently to another in terms of application of SRCs or not SRCs or all that sort of thing. So we do need to do some more work on that particular aspect. That said, there is a role for these special rates and charges. There are certain scenarios where the application of them makes a lot of sense. Sealing of private laneways, for example, where the benefit is mostly private, makes some sense. I like the improvements that have been made in this policy around looking at community benefit, and also looking at the point at which council will provide more of the funding. So that is an improvement, because I'm also conscious that an SRC is a regressive charge on residents. And that there can be equity issues around that, again, particularly in relation to footpaths. So I'd be keen for more of a discussion around certain aspects of it, but the policy as it stands, I think, is certainly better than what we had, and will be very useful in certain circumstances.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I think everyone's going to echo similar thoughts. I do think that there's been some good work put in by officers. I appreciate the councillors, particularly Councillor Aitken, for the involvement. This is not a simple one. The concern I have with these SRCs is that it's sort of a one-shoe-fits-all, and unfortunately there's circumstances where that's just not the case. And I use some tangible examples of some of the developments of the 80s, particularly in Bellpost Hill, where there is no footpaths in the suburb. When I say no footpaths, they're on one side and nothing on the other side, and you've got people with prams and elderly people walking down roads, and they are in desperate need of infrastructure. However, the affordability may not be there in terms of those community members. Their expectation as community members is that they already pay rates to the council. That's what they see those rates being for, is to provide infrastructure, needed infrastructure, and as a result of us having these SRCs, is they then have to pay additional costs for that. And there's other times where it's quite obvious that the benefit to the abutting properties, whether they be commercial or residential, will obtain significant benefit, and some contribution is valid. But I think that the fact that there is a real affordability issue there from residents and some commercial property owners is that we are now seeing that that infrastructure is not being delivered. So we could put the SRC up there, but it won't be accepted. They can't afford it. Do they want the infrastructure? Of course they want it, and they feel like they need it, and they feel like they're already paying for it with their rates. So I still think there needs to be opportunity where initiatives that come to us to deliver infrastructure, we still need to look at it through the lens. I know we've got the policy to guide us, but I still think there needs to be an opportunity to look at it through the lens of the community and how we supply that infrastructure. So again, like others, I'll support it tonight, but I do think everyone that comes our way, we still need to scrutinise.
Couldn't agree more, Councillor. Can tell. Well said. Any other councillors wishing to comment on this one? Councillor Aitken to close.
Thanks, Marsha. Yeah, look, I think the team and myself have listened to the councillors tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to at least put this policy as a base document. Clearly, we've got to do more work, in particular about footpaths, and I think we all recognise that, and to a lesser extent, roads. They seem to be the two hot topics in terms of this particular policy area. But I think if we adopt this as our base, and then as a collective group, we can try and see if we can work something forward in relation to footpaths in particular, and some roads. I think it's a step forward. It's certainly not a clear step forward, but it's a step forward for us as the council group in relation to special rates and charges. So thank you.
Indeed, thank you. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 8 is the City of Greater Geelong and Chiang City Memorandum of Understanding, and Councillor Cottell will excuse himself. And will be moved by Councillor Murrahy and seconded by Councillor Harwood. Thank you, Councillor Murrahy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and it is really great timing for this item on the agenda tonight, that's for sure. The purpose of this item is for the CEO to approve the progress of a Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Greater Geelong and Chiang City. Chiang, with a population of 1.2 million, is a coastal city located in the southern part of the Korean Peninsula in South Korea, and is the main industrial and manufacturing hub for that country, and is home to recognised global companies such as LG and Hyundai, and of course Hanwha Corporation. And as we saw the great announcement yesterday, the news that Hanwha has been selected for the tender for the Commonwealth's Land 8116, a $2 billion project to build and maintain 30 self-propelled howitzers and 15 armoured ammunition resupply vehicles. And of course, we keep our fingers crossed at the announcement in the new year to supply land 400 tanks to the Australian Defence Force. A contract worth $27 billion over 10 years is also awarded to Hanwha, and all will be built right here in Geelong. So there will be a lot of goodwill built into this Memorandum of Understanding. Officers from Chiang City who initiated the approach on the MOU, and officers from the City of Greater Geelong have met to investigate the opportunities, expectations and operations of a formal relationship between the two cities, which will focus on trade, education and cultural exchange. So maybe this is an exciting opportunity for the City of Greater Geelong, and one that should provide further opportunities for other major institutions in the Geelong region to leverage. And in fact, there's been high-level discussions with a small number of institutions in the region that have the potential to benefit from a city-to-city relationship with Chiang City, and all have been supportive of the approach. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murrahy. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've often spoken about opportunities for our highly skilled labour workforce in the Geelong area. Obviously, the shutdowns of Alcoa and Ford and to a lesser degree the Shell refinery have left a lot of our skilled workforce having to look elsewhere, and this represents an opportunity for them to be involved in the manufacture of these particular items that are going to be occurring in the Geelong region. It's an interesting one where the world sort of not so much demands, but sort of requires, I guess, we see this to defend ourselves at different times. So the fact that we're going to be manufacturing hardware that will hopefully defend our country when it needs to occur, it's one of those sort of moments where you hope it doesn't happen, but I guess it's about being prepared for those moments that we can't predict. So I'm happy to support the MOU, and I'm happy to support further opportunities that may reach into the future where we can extend our relationship with Chiang in South Korea, and also look to further look at manufacturing opportunities, particularly for our skilled labour force work here in Geelong.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, the broader community in Geelong, when they think of South Korea, they probably think of K-pop. More recently, they probably think of the Squid Game. That's what the South Koreans have given us in Geelong. But what's amazing is that the South Koreans are quickly possibly going to be the new Ford of Geelong for the 21st century. So in the 20th century, the Ford Motor Company established its plant in 1925 out in Norlane, and behind it there still is at least about 600 people employed in engineering design associated with international Ford operations. Well, the reality is that this century in Geelong may actually be known as the South Korean and Hanwha century, because the reality is the decision this week of the $1 billion land 8116 project, and the potential next year of the land 400, which could still go to another site location, but we must be in a very good spot for that with the decision that's been made this week. So the reality is that the Geelong community is going to become significantly more aligned with our fellow humans associated with the area called South Korea. And certainly it's drawing significant federal government attention into Geelong. And I congratulate the federal government for actually supporting Geelong to be able to do this. And this is another step for us as a council group to actually take advantage of the Hanwha century that is actually going to exist in Geelong over the next 70 to 100 years. So congratulations to everybody that has been involved with this. Fantastic that it's occurred. This decision's been occurred under the advocacy that's occurred under your leadership, Mayor Asher, for the last 2 years. And I look forward to the significant job numbers that this investment will actually make in Geelong. And I do hope that we can get the next tranche of these opportunities with Hanwha, which is the land 400 next year as well too. And I hope we continue our advocacy and don't stop. We actually do have a responsibility to make sure we can get every single innovative employment opportunity that we can in Geelong, and create these new employment avenues and return to hope, especially to manufacturing, which Geelong has had a very proud history of in the past.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Other comments? Councillor Nelson.
Just wanted to congratulate everyone on getting this, the MOU up, certainly with what's happened in recent days with regard to building or getting Hanwha down here in Geelong. This Land 400 project has been going for 10 or 11 years now. It's probably longer than I've been a councillor, I think, from memory. And the local Senator, Sarah Henderson's been a champion of this, that's for sure. But what the main thing for me is, yes, we're building them, but we're maintaining the vehicles as well. So that's 30 years of maintenance, which is a lot of ongoing jobs. It says 350 there. I'm guessing it's going to be a lot more than that. So it's great that South Korea has chosen Geelong. South Korea is in that pivotal spot, as Councillor Mason knows, on the Korean Peninsula there. So they've got potential enemies to the north and to the west. So having them down here is really good for us strategically, and it's also good for jobs for our area. So manufacturing's back in Geelong. That's great. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any others? I'll just say a couple of words. I absolutely echo all the comments everyone else has already made. This is huge for the Geelong region, not just the jobs, but that step into private investment, the fact that advanced manufacturing is at the heart of it. The direct benefits are obvious. The indirect flow-on effects as well will be countless. And as Councillor Aitken said, it's really important that we keep the momentum up as well and keep up that advocacy for the Land 400 too. So congratulations to the federal government, to everybody involved, and also all the team members here who've continued that advocacy as well. Do we have any others to comment? We'll go back to Councillor Murrahy to close.
Yeah, thank you. And it's only a few years ago the then Mayor, Councillor Bruce Harwood, and myself met representatives from Hanwha here. So I'd like to think we made a good impression and had some input to the final decision. Look, this MOU will be reviewed annually. Now, I'd just like to acknowledge Tim Ellis for the enormous amount of work that he has done on the relationship with the city in the economic development and with Hanwha. And Tim leaves the organisation Christmas Eve, so I'd imagine an announcement yesterday with the last few days that he's with the organisation, he'd be pretty chuffed with the announcement, and would be very pleasing for him. So it's all good timing and exciting news, Madam Mayor.
Great. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 9 is the Community Life Council Advisory Committee's Annual Report 2021, to be moved by Councillor Mason and seconded by Councillor Mansfield. Oh yes, we do need to get Councillor Contell back in for this one, if somebody would be so kind. I'm sure he can join in at the chorus. Councillor Mason, feel free to start. Welcome back, Councillor Contell.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And this report asks Council to note the annual report of the Community Life Advisory Committees, and we are really grateful for the work done by all members. And as has been discussed tonight on a few occasions, community participation is an extremely important part of civic life and the development of social policy. And it's an old truism, I think, that through participation and through understanding you get greater commitment. So I'm really, really pleased that that the Community Life has got 6 advisory committees. Of course, they're not the only advisory committees, so we see a member of another advisory committee here tonight, in fact. I remember you, Jennifer, if you don't remember me. But anyway, excuse me. Anyway, these 6 committees, the Ageing Well Advisory Committee, the Affordable Housing, the Access and Inclusion, and the Women in Community Life Advisory Committees, I do hope that some of the councillors will be able to speak to them tonight, about all the valuable work that they're doing. But I'm particularly energised for having been chair of 2 of these committees, and the first one's, 2 of them, Killinjit Aboriginal Advisory Committee and the Multicultural Action Plan Advisory Committee, and I'll talk to both of those fairly briefly. So the Killinjit, formerly Karinga, has a broad-based First Nation representation, including 1 representative from the Wadawurrung traditional owners, 1 from the Wadawurrung Aboriginal Cooperative, 2 First Nation representatives, Geelong Fire, Barwon Health, Department of Health and Human Services and city officers. And so I'm really gratified with the work of this commitment by council endorsement of the Uluru Statement of the Heart, echoing the sentiments of the committee, and I'm full of pride that a letter was sent to the Prime Minister. I'm also proud of its contribution to NAIDOC Week, the LG Pro Award under the Indigenous Community Partnership, for the outstanding work being undertaken and delivered in collaboration with the city. I'm further delighted by the digital art we often see, the First Nations Heritage Grant Program, the specially developed Geelong Australia web page featuring 23 selected sites that have significance not only to the local Aboriginal community but the wider community. And it's uplifting that we still fly the First Nation flag in conjunction with the Torres Strait Islander flag during NAIDOT Week. And so I'm looking forward to further development of treaty, of the reconciliation plan, innovate and reflect, and to develop the further cultural learning within the city, organisation and the municipality. Similarly, the Multicultural Action Plan Advisory Committee is another broad-based committee of council officers and 12 community members, including the Geelong Ethnic Council, nominated community representatives, the Islamic Society of Geelong, Geelong Interfaith Network, Deakin, Multicultural Aged Care Services, Vic Police, and of course, Directorate. And it's fulfilling to have a developed multicultural action plan and to heed the advice given by the culturally and linguistically diverse strategies, especially through the pandemic, and to have received and considered advice on the very wide range of activities such as Refugee Week, promotion of the Partnership of Victorian Multicultural Commission, Directorate Migration, Migrant Workers Centre and WorkSafe on the Safety at Work program. Similarly, the culturally and linguistically diverse women's and men's swimming programs at Waterworld and other social outreach activities to reduce racism and the support of youth. It's been great to see the empathy and support for the local Afghan and Hazara communities during the Taliban takeover and the subsequent turmoil. I look forward to further enriching initiatives in 2022, promoting understanding of the purpose and significance of multiculturalism in Greater Geelong, and I now look forward to hearing from the other councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Well said. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Councillor Mason. You certainly outlined, the amazing work that the advisory committees do. I'm really pleased to be part of the Ageing Well Advisory Committee and the Social and Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. I've been in a number of other advisory committees over my time in council, and I'm always just blown away by the enthusiasm of community members and their willingness to give up time as volunteers to really meaningfully engage with council on issues that they're passionate about. And I really thank all the community members who are part of these advisory committees for the work that they do, because what you do really does shape the decisions we make, and without that input we would really, I think our decision making would certainly be all the poorer for it. It's a key way that we hear from our community about the things that they care about. In terms of the Ageing Well Advisory Committee, this is a relatively new committee, and it's sort of started during the COVID pandemic, so we've never met face-to-face at any stage, but the engagement has been incredible. That committee has been fundamental in helping to develop our positive ageing strategy. We had Seniors Week, which was really successful once again, 2 years in a row, online events, and it went really well. They've done a lot of advocacy around improving accessibility at Cardinia Park Stadium for older people, and the issue of homelessness, particularly for women as they age, has been something that they've provided a lot of input and advocacy around. So I've loved working with that committee. The Social Housing Advisory Committee has been brilliant to be part of. We have some serious expertise in that group, and we've benefited so much in the work that we're trying to do in social housing because of having access to those members. So thank you as well. They've helped to inform, the decision that we made earlier in the year around establishing the Geelong Affordable Housing Trust. They've provided input to submissions that we've made to the state government social housing strategy. We've had some really interesting discussions around things like how you measure the value of social housing and how we should use that sort of information. about how we engage with the community around social housing. And again, we've had a major discussion around homelessness, particularly for women, and that has actually led to further outcomes, including recently a discussion with the local member for Geelong, Christine Cousins. So we, I once again, I really, really value the input that we get from the community members, and also wanted to thank all the staff who support that, because it's it's a lot of work to support those advisory committees, but I think it's well worth it.
There we go. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Any other councillors like to comment on this one? Councillor Maloney, go for it.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and also thank you so much to the councillors who commented on their committees. I think that this is an invaluable component of what we do on council, and I am really fortunate and humbled to be the chair of their Women in Community Life Advisory Committee, which is just an incredible bunch of women who are seeking to really break down those barriers to women's participation, talk about emerging issues and put them at the forefront. And I couldn't be prouder of some of the achievements we've had throughout this year, which has been incredibly trying. I've really enjoyed International Women's Day. It's my favourite day of the year, but I was also privileged to co-host with Mayor Asher the International Women's Day presentations and the awards of incredible, outstanding women in our community. And also I think that one of the major contributions this year that I'm incredibly proud of the group, which was the feedback and advice that was provided with the Gender Equality Act as well. That was last year, but I think that the work of Councillor Mansfield was a tough act to follow, but really I can't thank them enough, and also the council officers who are supporting groups to enable them to help us make the right decisions and benefit the presence of women, and also tackle really tough issues like human rights, community development and domestic violence in our community. Thank you, Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Other councillors? Go to Councillor Mason to close.
I thank the other councillors for their input, and one can feel the enthusiasm and energy involved in advisory committees, and really it's just good governance. It's an essential element of our being as a council and as a city, and I think we've got to continue to enhance participation and participatory decision making, and as I said before, through that you get greater understanding and greater commitment. And I'm sure we've all taken note of the report and all of the speakers. Thank you, Mayor Asher.
Indeed, thank you, Councillor Mason. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 10 is the proposed lease to Powercorp, part of 110 to 122 Unity Drive, Mount Dunedin, to be moved by Councillor Harwood and seconded by Councillor Nelson. Thank you, Councillor Harwood.
Madam Mayor, this is fairly straightforward, just seeking to authorise the City to enter into a lease with at Unity Drive in Mount Dunedin with Powercorp Australia, to locate a power substation site. This site will provide power to the new Armstrong Creek West Community Hub. So I'd suggest if we don't support this tonight, we're going to be in a spot of bother with the community.
It's quietly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The good thing about this project is it puts the power underground, something I've been advocating for a while, that Armstrong Creek West, which is called Mount Dunedin now, is all underground power, and the sooner we can get that across the municipality, the better, but I think it'll be long. I'll be dead long before that's done. So, but it's good to see, as Councillor Harwood said.
Councillor Nelson, any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Harwood.
Thank you.
Okay, let's put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 11 is tender T21000082, Armstrong Creek West Community Hub construction, to be moved
Madam
by...
Mayor, I failed to declare a conflict. I have a conflict on this matter. Okay. The proposed winning bidder is a customer of the company of which I'm a director.
Okay, you are excused, Councillor Quintel. Thank you. We'll note that one. Okay, this is to be moved by Councillor Nelson and seconded by Councillor Maloney. Thanks, Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This is for the tender to be awarded to Fairbrother for 11.45 million, bless you, for Armstrong Creek West, which is now called Mount Dunedin. Mount Dunedin. I've just lost it. Community hub for a kinder for 66 children, 3-year-old kinder, outdoor play areas, maternal health, consulting rooms, family support rooms, parents' lounge, flexible community spaces like the one in Armstrong Creek East, Warralilly, toilets and storage room, kitchenette. I'm a bit concerned about the numbers on this press release though, because it says council has committed 10.7 and the state government's 2.25, which is 12.95, and it says it's only 11.45. So someone's done the math wrong somewhere there, but I'm sure Fairbrother will work it out when they get the contract documents in the mail. Great community outcome. It's next to the Murrahy Primary School, those playing at home, which is right in the centre of Mount Dunedin, just down the road from the men's shed, which is under construction now. So great outcome for that community of Mount Dunedin, long overdue, and it'll be there next to the primary school, which opened last year, and it's already full. So lots of young families down there, which is great. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And I think that this construction will complement the suite of council-led initiatives in this area to really grow what has been an incredibly fast-moving and burgeoning suburb. With respect to this development, I really like the fact that it is a five-star Green Star rated building. It looks pretty swanky and it's sustainable, and it's also very accessible, which is something that our wonderful advisory committees help us advise us on. And I really am looking forward to seeing this in our community. Thank you, Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is, I guess, testimony to our procurement team at work, and we'll be looking forward to the finished product here. And again, this should give us confidence as we move into the future, as you head out to the north and the west as well, where these community hubs will be an essential part of development out there. And obviously, we'll be serving our community with great need and bringing communities together. So I'm very excited about this prospect out for Armstrong Creek, and I look forward to the finished product.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Nelson to close.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This project will start construction next month, 11th of January, so that's great that getting some more workforce and construction workforce into Geelong to build that down there in just a few weeks' time for those playing at home, because we now have an empty audience. Isn't that what karaoke means, empty audience? So we've got a karaoke going here at Council. Anyway, that's it.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Nelson. On that note, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Call Councillor Contel back in. Right, move on to item 12, which is tender T210092, the North Bellarine Aquatic Centre construction, to be moved by Deputy Mayor Sullivan and seconded by Councillor Nelson. Thanks, Deputy Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. The paper we have before us recommends that Council award the contract to Kane Constructions for the North Bellarine Aquatic Centre, and that also authorises the CEO to execute the contract and any other documents that are required. Madam Mayor, this is an auspicious occasion because what we have before us is what will put shovels in the ground for what is to be the long-awaited North Bellarine Aquatic Centre. Now, ever since the closure of the Dell, the North Bellarine has been crying out for equal access to aquatic facilities. And that has been proven by our own studies, which show that Northern Bellarine residents have the least equitable access to aquatic facilities across the entire municipality. Well, we've all said it, that this is a council that delivers, and we will continue to deliver because we are making this pool a reality. And that's a reality which will benefit the health, safety and education of the entire Bellarine and more. Residents will soon have access to both outdoor and indoor pools without having to drive all the way into central Geelong. And this is something that is sorely needed. Currently, we have adults, students, children, travelling past 2 separate aquatic facilities to finally arrive at a third which services their needs. Now, these facilities aren't cheap and must always have maximum utility for the communities that are within their reach. The foundation which we are assigning today once again plays right into Council's first strategic priority of providing for healthy, inclusive and caring communities. Pools are much more than bodies of water. They are places to create and maintain healthy bodies, healthy minds, to gather, socialise, learn to swim and learn safety, which in turn saves lives. And already we have plans out for Stage 2, a stage which includes a further 3 indoor pools, as well as spa, steam, sauna facilities, wet and dry cafe, as well as a full gym with multiple group exercise rooms for our entire community. Now, this all shows that this is the correct design, the correct layout, and the correct foundation for what is going to be a world-class, environmentally friendly, community-based aquatic facility. And I would like to finish off by thanking Mayor Asher for her leadership throughout this whole process, which has been tireless since 2017, and also acknowledge the great work of Senator Sarah Henderson, who, without securing the funding from the federal government, this would not be possible. So I'm happy to move the recommendation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Councillor Nelson.
I think Councillor Sullivan has said just about all. I remember the old swimming pool at Clifton Springs next to the golf course there. I remember that quite vividly. That's been gone for, how long has that been gone for? 20 years now, I think. So it's good that you're getting a pool. As a kid growing up in Chilwell, I remember going to school. We used to walk down to the community pool to do our swimming lessons down there. That was good fun. So it's good to see that the people of Northern Bellarine, the school kids there will have that chance too. So it's important that everyone learns to swim. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Nelson. I'll just add my 2 bobs here too. It's so exciting for the community. This is, as Councillor Sullivan said, a very long-awaited product. It's the outdoor year-round heated 50-metre pool, which is a much-needed facility becoming a reality for the Bellarine community. And it's the first stage towards providing state-of-the-art aquatic facilities that are so critically needed for the northern Bellarine. It's an area that we know has suffered without adequate access to pools, as pointed out already, not just the Clifton Springs pool, but also the Port Ellington, the little private pool as well. So this is a fully funded pool and be a great reality by the end of either next year or early the following year. So thank you to the federal government and to this council for making this a reality. Any other councillors? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and I endorse most of what's been said. Thank you. And it is really, I also want to recognise and thank the federal government for the $10 million for this stage 1 of the pool. And we are all looking forward to fully implement stage 1 and stage 2. There's just one point, though, that I'd like to express some disappointment that we weren't able, possibly through the legally binding agreement, which we really must honour. But I was disappointed we couldn't find a bipartisan funding solution to project stages 1 and 2. And I think it might have been more efficient in the long run to make a seamless approach to this. But anyway, it's exciting for the Bellarine that we're taking this first step forward, and thank everyone for their inputs.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Mason. Other comments of Councillor Mansfield?
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And look, I think, we know that a pool is something that the people in the North Bellarine have wanted for quite some time, and we've heard issues about access to that sort of facility and the need in that community. I know that there are various models that have been put forward, but there are some political realities here that we've been given some money as a council when there's money on the table to deliver infrastructure that the community needs. It can be challenging to turn that down, but it's good that we're embarking on trying to develop a sort of bigger facility that addresses more of the community need that's been advocated for. I think from my position, obviously we look at the whole of the municipality, but I guess that it is concerning that sometimes we have areas and needs in our municipality that perhaps don't get as much love in terms of extra funding, and I'd certainly welcome any funding that might be out there for some much needed projects, particularly in areas in the Brownbill ward. There's parts of the 3219 postcode that there are recent reports showed have some of the most vulnerable residents in the entire country. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs a bit of a helping hand in that area. Aldershot Reserve is something that we've haven't been able to secure some funding for, and has had several rounds of master plans and haven't been able to implement. The Whittington Community Hub could do with some work. So we're doing what we can as a council, but that additional funding from other levels of government can really make a difference. So I'm hopeful we'll in the coming year see some more funding to other community needs.
Great, thanks, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I think this is an outstanding result for the Ballerine community, and I agree with Councillor Sullivan that these particular three councillors in Asher, Mason and Sullivan, you all said that you would deliver a pool for the Ballerine at the start of your term last term. And the fact that you've been able to work with the federal government, particularly Sarah Henderson, to deliver some $15 million to this project, you should be applauded. So should Sarah Henderson for bringing this to the community. There's already been a lot spoken about the benefits of an aquatic centre like this. We've seen it all over Australia, certainly within Victoria, and I've used many, whether it's through competitive swimming or whether it's through passive exercise, rehabilitation. This will provide the community with decades of benefit. I appreciate what Councillor Mansfield has said, but this has also got to be a night for celebration, because I know that it annoys the hell out of us when we deliver something to the community and then other areas say, well, but you didn't give this, but you didn't give that. Everyone has their turn. And tonight it's the Ballerine's turn, and I applaud once again the community for being so active. And we talked about the emails and correspondence we got for Paco. We quickly forget how much correspondence we were getting about this some years ago. So I think it's fantastic that the community is now getting this as a great benefit, and I once again applaud the ward councillors and Sarah Henderson for delivering on what you promised.
Councillor Contell. Any other comments? Go back to Deputy Mayor Sullivan to close.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you to my fellow councillors for their comments. As I said, this has been such a topic in the Ballerine. The community passion around this project has been real. There's few topics in the Ballerine which have actually exceeded it, just at a grassroots level. So the community's behind it, we're behind it. Let's get it done.
On that note, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 13 is tender T210093, the Northern Aquatic and Community Hub construction, to be moved by Councillor Aitken and seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. Thanks, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, the CEO of the City of Greater Geelong has said to me that Councillor Aitken has actually been a nicer councillor over the last 12 months. And I actually responded and said I put it down to the fact that the Nash is actually going to be built. And I can remember when I first engaged in this project, it was actually with Liz Cole, who was a Community Development Officer of long time standing with the City of Greater Geelong. It was about 6 years ago. It was actually outside Kmart in Corio Village. And no one would talk to Liz, and I didn't know Liz, but I went over to her after I bought some plastic shelving at Kmart that was pretty cheap, and I think it's still working. And I went over and spoke to Liz, and I said, "What are you doing here, Liz?" And she said, "Oh, look, we've got to replace Waterworld. It's at end of life." And we think that there might be some benefit to actually try to do something bigger than just replace the water world. And I said, well, what are some of the things you're looking at? And she said, oh, well, we really want some arts, we want some recreation, and we want some community out if we're going to revisit and redevelop this. And that started the process of the vision of having the Northern Arc. And the Northern Arc was about trying to create a heart for the northern suburbs. And it involved a health component, which we now know as Barwon Health North. But importantly, it also included what we now call the NASH, which is the Northern Aqualican Community Hub. And look, it's with great joy tonight that this is actually, it doesn't stop now because we've found a tenderer. We've actually got fantastic bold decision from this council group to fund it primarily, and it's delivering on a project that certainly means a lot for the northern suburbs. We are the forgotten part of Geelong in terms of investment and infrastructure, but the reality is when Armstrong Creek is filled, the northern suburbs of Geelong is actually going to become the engine room of the future of Geelong, both commercially and residentially as well too. So the tide is turning again in terms of the focus, and this is really an investment to show the community out there that we do care about them. This is a beacon of hope for them to actually remind them that the broader community does help, wish to help and support them. The components of the project will mean that Barwon Health North will actually reach its full potential. Barwon Health North is actually about preventative health at a very unique, localised level, and it can't do that without the complementary investment that's going to occur at the NASH. And I know Barwon Health themselves are extremely excited that Council made the original decision to fund it, and now this is our best chance in Geelong to actually try to address the significant health issues that exist out in the northern suburbs, which include diabetes, which include poor nutrition, which includes significant health issues that we don't see in other parts of Geelong. And look, it is pleasing and probably that the successful tenderer for what is nearly a $55 million tender, which is actually one of the largest ever tenders that the City of Greater Geelong has engaged in terms of a project, is actually being constructed by Kane Constructions as the successful tenderer. Because do you know who Kane is? If people want a bit of a history lesson, they built the Geelong Library just next door to us here, the Heritage Centre. They're building stage 1 and stage 2 of the Geelong Art Gallery. The Geelong Arts Centre. They've just finished completion of the GMHBA facility head office. They built most of the stages of Cardinia Park Stadium, and now they are continuing the success that they have in Geelong with a dual pool project with the North Ballerine and also the NASH in our northern suburbs. So I'm really proud that I got engaged in this project about 6 or 7 years ago. Look, we're ultimately elected to deliver to our community. And this project, there were times when I had to cry to Councillor Gresbeck because I was convinced that it wasn't going to go ahead. And she did say to me, look, stick with it. It's still too good a project not to go ahead. And tonight it can't stop now. It's actually happening. Let's get on with it. And I'm really looking forward to the first turning of the ceremonial shovel on this one, Mayor Asher, because it's a big thing for the North. Thank you.
Well done, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. One of my duties is to make sure that Councillor Aitken does not cry. Look, we will continue to advocate in this space. And look, on that note, thank you to the federal and the state government for their contribution of $8.5 and $8.26 million each. The most thanks, though, goes to this council chamber for these councillors sitting in the room and on the screen. they have supported this project to this position that we are now, backing in the landmark community facility in the northern suburbs. Council will be putting in a record amount of money. That doesn't say that we won't stop advocating, because we will continue to advocate for more support. This is not just about a pool, it's not just about a water slide, coming back to the north. This is a community hub. It is also the replacement of Centenary Hall into a multi-purpose opportunity that the community will use. This will mean so much to the people of the north, but also to the people who will be living in the future northern and western growth areas. This is a regional project. It is about health services, as Councillor Aitken had said. It's about lifting them to the standard that we have across the whole of Geelong. This will be a beacon as you drive into Geelong from Melbourne. You will be able to see it on your right-hand side going through, and we want this to complement the Barwon Health North. The health benefits coming out of the Barwon Health North can only be achieved if it has its partner alongside it. So at this point we're pleased that the tender's going out, and we look forward to the gold shovel, Mayor Asher.
Several gold shovels. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Again, this is actually quite a significant event getting to this point. We've been working on this project for a number of years. It's been our number one project. We know the importance of health and wellbeing and infrastructure of this ilk to the community. And it's just a shame we sort of had to drag the state and the Fed sort of kicking and screaming to the table to actually put some money on the table. It's significant money. We appreciate that. We would have liked a little bit more to even it up. I guess the council, being the smaller fish in the pond, has put in the biggest amount, but so be it. It just shows the commitment and, I guess, the level of importance we place on this type of infrastructure, whether it's the north, the south, the east or the west. This type of infrastructure in our community is expected today, and the benefit it pays back. We know, we've been told many, many times, the formula for health and wellbeing is for every dollar you invest in, you get a $4.40 return. So we know the value of investing in our community in these particular hubs. So it is going to be a great day when the shovel goes in the ground. It'll be a better day when the first kid jumps in the new pool. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harwood.
That might be Councillor Aitken.
Well, he's a kid, so fair enough.
Too true. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Well, if we thought that the Ballerina Aquatic Centre was exciting and outstanding, then this is extraordinary, because look at the funding that's being put into this facility. And not to personalise it too much, but I do remember, and I'm sure there's other councillors that are around my age, so I'm a little older, I remember the excitement as a child when the Norlane Water World dome went up. It was the biggest thing in town, without a doubt, and I'd never seen a roof like that before. And I remember the excitement of going down to Norlane Water World, and enjoying many a summer down there. In fact, I went to see Southern Suns at the Norlane Water World. That's how long ago that was. But it's been a great facility. This will make it exceptional for the community. And yes, understand what's been said about funding. But if we really think about it, I don't think I've lived where there's been a Liberal member for Corio, yet it's a Liberal government that's giving some $8 million hand in hand with a Labor state government that's giving some $8 million. So whilst we could ask for more, having said that, it's great that they've contributed. And yes, we're putting our hands deep in our pocket, but it's a clever and creative investment, as many would like to say. This is a smart investment in the community and in the right place.
Spot on. Thanks, Councillor Contell. Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. A lot of money. It's a hell of a lot of money. $44.778 million. Should have been less. The local members out there should have done more. But we've got $8.5 million, $8.2 million, so that's great. But I'm proud of this group that we've done two things in as councillors. We've done our civic hub, civic accommodation, and now we've done this. 2 massive projects that previous councils all said it was too hard, and they didn't do it. I've been sitting here for, I don't know, 8-10 years or so, and we've looked at doing it, but we've never done it. I remember as a kid going out to Waterworld because that was the place to go. Those water slides were great. The yellow one was fully enclosed, and that was the one to go on. The blue one was just ordinary. For the younger kids, the yellow one was the one. The 3 dips at the end, right at the bottom, and then straight into the water it was the best thing as a kid. It really was. I'd ride my bike out there. It was a long way to go, but that was the place to go. And that was 30 years ago, maybe a bit longer than 30 years. And now it's back again. The north will be the place to go for the pool, and that's really good. And I'm so proud of this group for doing this. It's a big number. I'm very concerned about the number, but I'm very proud of this group. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. We have actually done more than 2 things. I've got about 4 pages of
Big
things. We've done lots of big things. But yes, absolutely. Any other councillors wish to comment? Back to Councillor Murrahy. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I was reminiscing, and I'm perhaps the oldest that might remember, like driving through Geelong from country Victoria through to Melbourne, and if it was a nice day, you'd stop at the North Lane pool, and that was like so exciting. And as a couple of councillors have said, you know, some of the outdoor pools and the dome. And there were thousands of people there. I can just recall the number. It sticks in my mind, the number of people there and the noise coming from the place. And of course the diving pool at the back where they had that how many metres would that be?
10 metres.
10. Well, as to a kid, it looked like 30 metres, and you'd be petrified. And I might have made it to the edge, but I didn't jump off and went back down the stairs. But look, that's the thing. It was big back then, and now it's going to be big again. And so, you know, the biggest commitment by this Geelong Council to any community infrastructure. It's big money, but it's going to be fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Murrahy. Okay, back to Councillor Aitken to close.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. All I wish to say is the following, that I'm looking forward to Councillor Mansfield bringing her children out to do Learn to Swim. I'm looking forward to Councillor Contell to come out and do laps in the 25-metre pool. I'm looking forward to Councillor Councillor Mason coming out and using the hydrotherapy pool to do some aqua aerobics to assist in ageing well. I'm looking forward to Councillor Murrahy to actually use the theatrical skills he has to actually perform in front of the 400-seat community theatre that we're going to build. I'm looking forward to peering through the window and seeing Councillor Harwood on a spin class. I'm looking forward to Councillor Maloney to actually use the multi-purpose facility to actually do a presentation on food and nutrition to my community. I thought, what could I get Councillor Nelson to do? Well, he can actually...
off the top tower.
He can ride his bike out there.
Councillor Nelson can actually come and do a Zumba class out there if he wishes. And what are Councillor Aitken and Councillor Bresbeck going to do? We're actually going to take our shoes off. We're going to sit there and rest, and we're actually going to look and enjoy at this magnificent facility that has been funded by the community. Thank you, Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. On that,
Steph, sorry, I forgot you, Steph. What I was going to get you to do was you could come and do surf life-saving lessons for us to stop us from drowning, especially our multicultural community that don't understand about RIPS and other things at the facility as well too. So thank you.
fantastic. Future employment for all of us. I love it. Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Big occasion. Look out, they're going to have a cry. Okay, item 14 is tender T21000094, the sports lighting panel, to be moved by Councillor Nelson and seconded by Councillor Harwood. Thanks, Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillor Aitken can have a glass of water while we continue on. This is just to established a panel of 7 contractors to construct, renew and upgrade sports lighting in the City of Greater Geelong over a two-year period with the possibility of extension after that. The tenders are listed there. I'm not going to go through them now. It's 10 to 9. It's good for the community. There's a lot of different projects there that'll be getting lights to make it easier for sporting clubs to have their football and other things because of the growing participation of men and women and kids in our communities that are desperate to get out there and play some sport. So this is just to award that contract to those contractors. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good to see the process we're going through here. The particular companies that are listed here, they're going to be basically game changers for the region, creating lighting for our sporting facilities, of which there are many and varied. It's not just one sport or 2 sports, it's actually a number of sports that looking forward to having lighting capacities there. It will allow greater access to the facilities. It will allow for longer use of the facilities. It'll have a huge effect for women playing sport. It'll give greater equity to use of the facilities. So it's good to see that we've got a strong program ahead, and that we have a good list of tenders, which will allow us to move, I guess, quickly through the list as we go along in the near future. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to add that it is good that we're actually going to have a panel for these. These are sports lighting. We know as council laws that they're not items on a wish list. These are items that are required to play sport all year round, in fact. And it'll be good to see the opportunity for these particular contractors to really get a handle. We've done so many lighting in the past year, so many lighting projects in the last year. And I'd just like to call out Harris. I've had the fortune of watching Harris put the lights out at Lara Football Club, Lara United and a few other places. The professionalism shown by that particular group of that company was amazing, and I'm hoping that and I'm sure all of the others will be the same, but the amazing ability to come and make sure the community comes along the journey. I think these particular companies will hopefully be able to do that just as well as Harris can. So thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we're looking forward to more sports lighting.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other councillors wish to comment on this one? Back to Councillor Nelson to close.
Nothing further, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 15 is the Charlemont Rise Estate Stages 12 and 18, the revocation of flood-prone area designation of new lots, to be moved by Councillor Harwood, seconded by Councillor Nelson. Thanks, Councillor Harwood.
Mayor Asher, this is a continuation of the works being done out in the Charlemont area, and the city engineers are confident that the works done will withstand the 100-year flood. So we see the new designation for the new lots out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nelson?
Not much further. It's just an amazing achievement that we're doing out there in Armstrong Creek. I remember that area used to get flooded all the time. Not once in 100 years. It was 10. It's more than 10. So what we're doing out there is great for the people of Charlemont. Thanks.
Right, any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Harwood.
Yeah, thank you.
All good. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 16, very similar, Charlemont Rise Stage 17A, 30A and 23, revocation of flood-prone area of new lots, moved by Councillor Maloney, seconded Councillor Harwood. Thanks, Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I think this is a similar procedural mechanism to revoke the flood-prone area from stages 17A and 30A and also 23 lots from the Charlemont Rise Estate. It's really coming up in that part of the world. And I'm sure that a deluge of people will be making sure that their insurances are all good and proper as a result of this flood mapping, which is done by Council. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Harwood.
Councillor Maloney has now got the swing of this, so it's nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay, nothing from anybody else. Back to Councillor Maloney to close.
Nothing further. I've run out of puns. Thanks.
Great, thank you. I'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 17 is Warralilly Estate Stage 105, revocation of floodprone area designation of new lots, to be moved by Councillor Maloney. Moved by Councillor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Maloney. Thanks, Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, this is just like the others, but just in a different part, further south to Ambrosia Drive down in Armstrong Creek, or what's also called Warralilly Estate. That's probably about it. It's an even bigger project. I'm looking at the flood map now, and it's all blue, so not just little bits of blue, it's all blue. So a good outcome for the community down there.
Great, thank you. Councillor Maloney?
Nothing much further to add. Thank you, Mayor Asher.
Okay, anyone else like to comment? Back to Councillor Nelson.
Nothing further, Madam Mayor.
Put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 18 is the Point Estate Stage 8 revocation of flood-prone area of new lots, to be moved by Councillor Mason and seconded by Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Thank you, Councillor Mason.
Mayor Asher, I'm really quite excited to have the opportunity to do this. It's not often the Bellarine has a revocation pleasure, but in this case, Stage 8 of the new lots at the Point Estate are no longer flood prone due to the engineering and development works done to mitigate the threat. All criteria have been met, and so that the new lots in Point Estate fronting 25 Limpet Circuit in Lonnie is now free of their flood prone status and paves the way for new homes to be built on the land. And that also alleviates the risk of any failure to disclose a flood prone area on behalf of the council. And so people can now construct a house without a special permit and without raising the floor level of their home. Thank you, Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Deputy Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I echo the sentiments of Councillor Mason to sit here every council meeting for 4 years now and watch the Giddinya ward councillors have all the fun with their floodplain revocations. It's fantastic fun to be a part of one.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Back to Councillor Mason to close.
We're so energised I'll do a few laps of the pool later on. Nothing further to add, Mayor Asher.
Great, thank you. We don't want the pools in the estates. Okay, put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 19 is the Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration Policy, to be moved by Councillor Aitken and seconded by Councillor Maloney. Thanks, Councillor Aitken.
Councillor Policy Aitken, it appears to be tonight, Mayor Asher, because all I keep doing is bringing policies before the council. So this one's actually for the person sitting next to me on my left. It's the Chief Executive Officer's essentially remuneration policy. The new Local Government Act told us that by the 31st of December of this year, we had to actually review, update and have a look at our existing employment and remuneration policy for the Chief Executive Officer of the City of Greater Geelong. The policy has been changed. Some of the things that have happened is we've actually renamed it so that it's aligned with the terminology that's in the new Local Government Act. And it's also been updated so that the employment contract of any future CEO matches the requirements of the Local Government Act, and also reflects the intent of our existing CEO performance committee, which is to undertake a review annually of the CEO's remuneration as well too. So that, look, they are peripheral in terms of changes, but it is important, an important document for the fact that the CEO is the only employee of the City of Greater Geelong that councillors actually employ and have performance over, and so it is important that we have a policy basis at which we're undertaking those duties.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I think this is a really important policy. I've learned a lot about governance over the last year, and this one in particular sets out some things that I find really brings together a lot of the new Local Government Act 2020, including performance monitoring and an annual review. And I think that one of these things will certainly bring into alignment what we do as councillors and help us with the process of engaging. And also I think that although it is a peripheral change, it's important to keep abreast of what these acts, especially Section 45 of this, pertain to. So, really looking forward to approving this if it's possible. Thanks.
Councillor Maloney, any other comments on this one? Councillor Aitken to close. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 20 is the revocation of council policies, to be moved by Councillor Contell and seconded by Councillor Murrahy. Thanks, Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. What's being proposed here is that we revoke 7 policies which are no longer relevant. And you'll see from attachment 2.200 that they have either been superseded, they're either part of another policy that council already has, or those matters are managed through other mechanisms. I will leave it at that.
Councillor Murrahy.
I've nothing further to add to that.
Any comments, Councillor Aitken? Just because it's a policy, you have to talk.
Thank you. That's right. Look, as I said, councillor policy, Aitken policy, whatever you want to call me. I've brought 3 here tonight. Look, it's actually quite fascinating. Governments and bureaucracy actually talk about red tape, and this is actually really our red tape clean out that we do as the City of Greater Geelong. Because essentially what we're saying is that we've got multiple policies, which we know we do have, and that there is this review process that's been undertaken and will occur on an annual basis. So this isn't just a one-off thing for the council. If we provide enough resources and support to our governance team, they'll continuously look at our policies and then bring, essentially clean up the red tape. Because this was 7 policies that were giving direction and operational instruction to the organisation, and with their revocation, we're actually reducing the amount of red tape and ensuring that there is consistency across a policy decision making and not causing conflict. And it appears that these 7 policies were causing some conflict because they were duplicated in other areas, and they were also outdated, some of them as well too, because they had been replaced by other policy terms and names. So this is appropriate. It's the last item on the public agenda because it is about cleaning up our red tape at the City of Greater Geelong. I look forward to more initiatives that actually make it easier and simpler for all of us to participate in our involvement with the City of Greater Geelong.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, and I'd just like to thank our Manager of Governance, Sarah McHugh, for doing that clean-up. It's not a small job, making sure that all of the things that were in those policies are covered by other policies. So thank you to you and your team for that, and we look forward to many more coming back next year.
And resulting in many fewer. Okay, any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Contell to close.
Do that, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, we move into section C, which is the notices of motion, and we have a notice of motion from Councillor Mansfield tonight, the Climate Change Stakeholder Forum. So thank you, Councillor Mansfield, presenting this tonight. May I have a seconder? I think Councillor Maloney was going to second this one. Is that right? Yep. Okay, so over to you, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And as is clear from the title of the notice of motion, this is about holding a stakeholder forum next year regarding our 2035 community-wide net zero target that we endorsed at our last council meeting as part of our climate change response plan. We've set ourselves a really bold target here with the community-wide target for net zero. 2035 sort of rolls off the tongue, but it is not very far away. It's less than 14 years away. And if you think about some of the debates we've had tonight and the discussions and people reflecting on, they've been sitting on council for 6 years, 10 years, however long it is, waiting for such and such a project to get done. When you consider the scale of what's required to achieve net zero emissions by 2035, it is absolutely phenomenal, the amount of work that we need to do if we're serious about reaching that target. The task ahead can really seem pretty overwhelming. I think council's experienced this at a recent energy forum we had. It was excellent. We had some expert consultants who really talked us through some of the practical aspects of what that transition is going to have to look like if we're going to get there. And it's pretty mind-blowing. But it's also exciting because there are a lot of opportunities ahead, but we've got to be ready and willing to take them. We're talking about things like green jobs, improved livability, cleaner air, economy that's set up to compete in a zero-carbon world. There's social equity outcomes. All of these things can be achieved, but we've got a lot of work to do. Today, it was fabulous to be at a ceremony where we saw the City of Greater Geelong receive a suite of awards for sustainability, as was talked about earlier. One of those projects was about our zero emissions buildings program, and that won in its category. It was a fantastic project. It's been enormously successful, and as Tim, our officer, was saying, who's helped to lead that project, despite increasing the number of council buildings, our emissions have actually gone down because of the work that they've put into that project. So we're doing some brilliant work in our own operations to get to net zero. But we're just 1% of the community. We need 99%, the rest of the 99% to be on board. We need to be transitioning everyone, residents, businesses, industry, agriculture, to net zero, so off fossil fuels. We need to be changing our transport. We're 85% car reliant, private vehicle reliant for our transport. That's going to have to change. Most of our cars are diesel and petrol. Less than 14 years, we've got to change that. So there's a lot of areas we've got to deal with, but council only plays a role in some of these things. We play a little bit of a role, we can shape things, but we don't necessarily drive a lot of the changes that need to happen. We are uniquely placed, however, in terms of our leadership role, and that's something, and we've got an ability to bring everyone together in the room and talk about how we can get there. This is a role that the community have also identified that they want to see us playing, and that came through really strongly in the community feedback on our climate change response plan. So this stakeholder forum is really an opportunity to start demonstrating that leadership, or to continue really to demonstrate that leadership, but really show that we're serious about this. We're going to have to work together with everyone in the community to get to net zero. It's an opportunity to share our vision, to take our role as leaders in the city. We need to identify all the things that will need to happen to reach the vision of net zero by 2035 and figure out who needs to work on what and how. I don't really want this to be a talk fest, and I don't think anyone does. I've discussed this with our CEO and our officers, and we all agree that this really needs to be, we need to take advantage of this opportunity to get stuck into some of the hard issues that we'll be needing to work through and tackle with others, and try and come out with some concrete actions for follow-up. You know, a great example is the issue of gas in new developments. It's a really hard issue, something we're not going to be able to solve on our own. We need to start having conversations about what that might mean, where we're going to go with that. We need to be open to ideas from other stakeholders about where they're going and how we can help them as well. Even if we don't get agreement, it's critical that key bodies in our community understand what net zero by 35 means in a practical sense, what changes need to happen, and to know that the City of Greater Geelong is on board and we want to work with everyone to help to get there. I really see this as a little bit like a COP for Geelong, but hopefully we'll get a better outcome than the global version, and we'll be one of those cities who really can be world leaders in reaching net zero within a scientifically supported time frame.
Thanks, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Councillor Mansfield, for proposing this notice to Council. I think it's a really great way to kick off. I mean, we just started to implement the climate change response plan, and we also just joined the city's Race to Zero campaign. So that forum will align with our recent commitment. And it is our role as leaders to really help our community guide and educate as to what this looks like in the future and vice versa. We get some advice so that people can contribute to what Geelong looks like in our beautiful, pretty city in the future, what it looks like when we line our streets with trees so that we can reduce the effects of heat island, for example, when we increase the carbon drawdown through initiatives. As you might have seen, many of us here at Council are competitive, and I think as a council group, we want to lead the pack with this, and especially when it comes to achieving targets for net zero emissions, also succeeding in Councillor Nelson's initiative to plant 1 million trees, and also ensuring that our tree canopy remains and also increases the suburb aesthetic. Also reducing the household costs associated with things like climate fluctuations, especially heating and cooling, really getting some advice from community as to how our buildings are built and how to sustainably manage our future energy mix, and a lot more things that I could talk about ad nauseum, but it's getting pretty late and I haven't had enough coffee to talk a little bit longer. But I think those sustainability awards that I'm so proud that we have won are just the start of a few of initiatives that we can enable the driving of our community to protect the effects of climate change, to ensure that we are leading our community to success rather than ruin. And I think a lot of people around the world as well might look to us and help get some education as to how we are doing this in our little pocket here in the Southern Hemisphere. So I congratulate Councillor Mansfield for her notice of motion, and I hope the fellow councillors will support this endeavour, because folks far and wide will be able to contribute to this in a meaningful way and really give us some insights, as well as providing key stakeholder knowledge that we can share. And I think that's one of the things that Forum is incredibly great at doing, sharing, and I couldn't really be prouder if this goes ahead to be talking sustainability for an extended period of time. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Councillor Maloney. Other comments on this one? Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Mansfield, for bringing this. It was one of the, out of the sustainability group, advisory group, it was a real theme that they wanted to hold this forum. I look forward to learning. I look forward to being able to facilitate some teaching in there too. I think we had, as you said earlier, Councillor Mansfield, we had a really good presentation recently on this particular topic, and really gave us some insight about some of the things that we might need to think about going forward. And I'd really look forward to maybe sharing that with the community. The facts are important here, and I think that if we can get that right, that's where I see this stakeholder forum being a forum which people can come and learn, but also we can teach the community can teach us. They can talk about, I think, things, how it affects the decision making of council, what decisions council makes, what decisions the community advocates to us to make, and I want to hear the range of views on this topic. And I think it's probably the right time now that we have our action plan in place. And I'd love to make sure that we do hear from everyone, even if they can't necessarily attend the forum, but maybe leave it open to a link where people can log in and watch it as well. So thank you, Councillor Mansfield, and I'll be supporting your notice of motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Murrahy.
I too will be supporting this motion. I congratulate Councillor Mansfield on bringing it to us. It just seems the next step to take. It seems to make sense and follow on from the work we've done with the sustainability framework, the climate change response plan, and a stakeholder forum just seems to be the next step. Personally, I can't hear too much about this topic, and sometimes it is difficult to get your head around it all. But each time I listen to someone with expertise speak on this topic, I learn so much, and I can't stop learning in relation to this, because it's such a massive topic. And so I take my hat off to those that can talk about it and with some knowledge. So I'm aware that the Committee for Geelong are planning something similar next year, so it'd be great to get in first, but I really mean that, and because the council should and will show leadership on this topic. So the opportunity is there. So, yes, very supportive of this. Thank you.
Councillor Murrahy. Councillor Harwood.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And I also will be supporting the notice of motion and the recommendation as it stands there. I think we've been having these discussions for quite some time now, and they keep reaching a particular point. And I think the point we keep reaching is this is quite a challenge. So what that tells me, if we don't actually start to address the challenge now and actually be serious about it, there is no doubt that in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, it's only a bigger challenge. So if we don't start to do the work today, what we will create in the future undoubtedly will just be a bigger problem as the world continues to grow as it does. And I've had this discussion with my children in recent times, and they're not radical about the discussion. They're very measured, they're very succinct and very clear, and they simply want to have an environment that is the best we can possibly have. And to do that, we have to recognise what our greatest threats are to that. And we've done that. We've recognised what the threats are. We know what they are. It's time we need to mitigate and eliminate those threats. So I fully support the forum that we're going to have on this discussion. And again, it'll just make it easier for me to go home and talk to the kids and my grandkids, knowing that I've voted in favour at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. There's Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and I applaud Councillor Mansfield for her motion and Councillor Maloney for supporting all of what's been said tonight. And I hear the words bold target in 2035. And we've been talking about community participation tonight and commitment through participation. One thing we really need to do is mitigate dissent, and it's going to be a hard road to hoe. And the depth of the ramifications of the threat of unmitigated climate change, I say unmitigated climate change, is still really poorly understood. And so it's really incumbent upon us to engage with the community and try and create greater understanding. And responsible planners have to use whatever data they have to design a lifestyle, to design a lifestyle for all, which carefully takes into account present and future needs. And we were talking about threats tonight. And there are threats which will compound and which in the next few decades will cascade and become unstoppable. These threats need to be better understood. They're threats such as the threat to sustainable food and production and sustainable water supply, the threat of melting ice caps. A little known fact, if Greenland melts, the sea level will rise by 5 metres. If Antarctica melts, the sea level will rise by 50 metres. We're doing flood overlays for 2.4 metres in 100 years' time, by the end of the century. Further threats, little understood. Ocean currents, which moderate the temperatures of continents, circulate nutrients for fish stocks. These currents will change in their direction in strength and fish populations will collapse. Another threat is millions upon millions of climate refugees will be generated. Councillor Nelson was talking about security. There's a huge security issue about the climate refugees, which will be generated in the future. And I've already witnessed conflict for land, which can easily I can easily understand the wars and struggles for viable living areas which can come. These are not myths, they're real and they're discussed at the highest levels of the United Nations. So now is the opportunity to engage the full, nearly finished, the full and latent force within our communities, and I thank Councillor Mansfield for a thoughtful and constructive notice of motion.
Thanks, Councillor Mason. Any others? Councillor Aitken.
Mayor Asher, thank you. Look, it was remiss of me before not to make some comments, so I'll take this opportunity because it's the last time we get to speak in public tonight anyway. Look, I do hope that this adds to the success that we're seeing on the desk next to the Mayor in terms of our recognition as a sustainable city. So this is another progressive step at which we're doing that. And I hope we do address the issue of climate change, and that is so that Councillor Sullivan can actually increase the population in the city of Greater Geelong and use the occasional care facilities that are actually going to be built at the Nash. And I look forward to him using those out in the northern suburbs.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Nice pick up there. Look, I'd just like to thank Councillor Mansfield for bringing this. I think it's a really good timing to do it. We had a question in the chamber only at the last meeting about when are we going to do the forum and can we have one. So it's certainly something we've had a lot of feedback about and a lot of requests for. So I look forward to that being something that kicks off very early in the new year. Have we got any other comments on this one? Go back to Councillor Mansfield. It's looking pretty positive.
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you to everyone for your support. I think, it's a positive way to sort of end the year, putting aside the doom forecasts that I know are there and I regularly contend with, but I think we need to, it's a scary reality that faces us, but we have no option other than to try and do something about it. We know more and more what we have to do to try and stabilise the climate. We are not powerless. A stakeholder forum will not solve all of our problems. I'm very aware of that, but it's a great way to position ourselves in this conversation about what are the practical things we need to start doing, what are the big decisions, what's the low-hanging fruit, and how do we all work together to get there. We're not the first city to try and do this. There was a great write-up in the media earlier this week about Nottingham City in the UK. That's a previous coal mining city that's now transforming to be net zero by, I can't remember, 2028 or something. It's been tough. There's been some easy wins and there's some really tough bits that they're still working on, but they're hopeful they'll get there. They won't be the world first, but it's an incredible story of a city that's made a huge transition from a traditional mining community to one that's now going to be leading the world. It's the way the world is going to be going, so we might as well be leaders in this, get ahead of the game, set ourselves up as, a place of innovation, get our communities ready, but also provide that economic and social opportunity for our communities by really getting on top of this one. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes of this forum. I'm hoping we can work together with other partners like Committee for Geelong, because it's important we're all on board. This is something where, we need everyone working together. So thank you once again to my councillors for your support, and hopefully we'll all be able to do this in person in the new year.
Positive thought. Let's put this one to the vote. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Well done. Section D is the record of informal meetings of councillors. Can I have a mover and seconder for the record of informal meetings? Moved Councillor Contell. Thank you. Seconded Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Section E is the planning delegations. I need a mover and seconder for planning delegations. Moved Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Harwood. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. I'm assuming we don't want to talk about these. Do we want to talk about these? I just moved straight through. Okay. Going into the confidential section, we just need to put these through. Can I have a mover and seconder to consider the Geelong Gallery in confidential, please? Moved Councillor Sullivan, seconded Councillor Mason. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. I need a mover and seconder to consider the Bell Park Sports Club in confidential. Moved Councillor Contell, seconded Councillor Aitken. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 6.3 is land acquisition. I need a mover and seconder for that to be confidential as well. Moved Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Nelson. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Community grants, lots of confidential items tonight. 6.4 is the 2021 to 22 community grants. Mover and seconder for those. Moved by Councillor Harwood, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Mason, thanks. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Audit and Risk Committee, summary to be in confidential. Moved Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Aitken. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. I now need to have a mover and seconder to close the meeting to the public so that we can consider all of these. Moved Councillor Nelson, seconded Councillor Harwood. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. So that's the end of the public meeting. I would like to thank both our virtual attendees and our gallery members, of whom there are none left now, for their participation tonight. We wore them down. Wishing everybody a very safe and happy break over summer. And thank you and good evening, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Christmas.